We have reached the point in this journey that we've been on where I am confident that we can now lift the requirements of a public health emergency. So effective immediately today, July 26th, we will be ending the public health emergency for COVID-19 and be rescinding the few related orders that are still in place. And that includes rescinding the PHO order requiring COVID vaccination to work in our healthcare system. We have reached the point in this journey that we've been on.
You might be pinching yourself right now. You might be pinching yourself saying, am I in a dream? Am I in 2022 still? Is this 2 years ago? Is this 3 years ago? What? British Columbia still had vaccine mandates? Really? Yeah, that's up until this point. Yes, vaccine mandates have been in place in British Columbia. Still, unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome to the show. Let's get the chat in here. How do we get that? How are we gonna come on over? There we go. Chat's in the house here. Good evening, everyone. Yes, good evening. Welcome. This is the live chat. If you're new to the channel, I know there's a bunch of new faces here. If you're new to the channel, every Monday through Friday, I do short videos, try to get videos out there talking about the news, things like that. And at the end of the week, I like to do a podcast of sorts, a live stream to talk about some of maybe the stories that are a little bit more nuanced and there's more to get to than in a 10-minute video, or perhaps breaking news as tonight, and other things, long conversations, chat with you guys out there, and also bring in some other people. We're gonna be experimenting with that tonight. Normally I do a whole hour just with the chat, and then I bring people in afterwards or bring a guest in. Tonight we're doing something different. We're gonna switch it up. So for the first 30 minutes, it's gonna be just us, you and me and you and I. Yes, it's just gonna be us. But no, we're gonna not do too many of those zoom-ins, but we're gonna be hanging out for the first half hour, and then we've got a whole panel of people, some really cool people coming on the show tonight, some last minute people even, to talk about the stories that are happening right now, and some other things that have been going on throughout the week. But yeah, looking forward to it. Some names that you may be familiar with, of course, Marty up north coming on in a half an hour, as well as Odessa. She's going to be jumping in here as well, or Odessa Orlowitz. I hope I'm pronouncing that correct. I'm terrible at pronouncing names, but Odessa, I had the pleasure of meeting her when we went to Victoria for that conference. She was there. It was great to meet her and her lovely husband. And who else we got coming on? We got Wyatt Claypool. He's going to be coming in a little bit later, as well as gov.exe is corrupt. You probably know him from Twitter. I'll have to get his actual name as he comes in here. But yeah, we're going to be chatting about all of these things as it comes on. I always pronounce this wrong. Dai Feichu with the $10 super chat. Just saying, I work harder than the majority of Canadians. Now shut up and give me your money. Yeah, that was Trudeau this week. Absolutely. Saying that, yeah, he works so much harder than everybody else out there. Yeah, a lot of people had a little bit of a contention with that. The most vacationed prime minister probably in, if not history, at least recent history. I don't know quite a vacationed prime minister quite as much as Justin Trudeau, but I guess he needs his beauty rest, as you would call it. That's him. Thank you so much for the $10 super chat. Really appreciate that. But yeah, we're gonna try to do something a little bit different. I haven't done a lot of panels, and I thought it would be fun to try out, because I know so many of these great personalities now online, and have friendships and friendships with these different personalities, and it's great to bring them all together instead of just one-on-ones all the time. It'd be really cool to have a panel. It's not something that I've done before, so we'll see how it goes. I've been in a few of the Twitter spaces with people, and I know that sometimes it can get really hectic, and other times it can be really cordial, and everybody speaks one by one. And we'll see how this all goes tonight. It should be really good. Chippy's Outdoors saying, good evening, Clyde and Clydettes. Good evening. SK with a 6.99 super chat. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Ask why CPC is so ridiculously weak on immigration. Yeah, we'll get into that. Absolutely. I don't know if they're so extremely weak on immigration, but we'll dive further into that one. I know that they're not exactly tearing down Parliament to make sure that Trudeau is changing course. I know that they're not really pulling too much or saying too much about it, but I think their immigration policy, the one that they're espousing for, is the old immigration policy of Canada. So I'd like to see that. I know a lot of people would like to see the old way we used to do immigration. And if that's the plan, well, I think that's a really good stance. But thank you so much for the super chat. Really appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, I'd like to... Whoa, hold on. What? Yeah, I'd like to know why Pierre seems so pro-immigration. I don't get the pro-immigration vibes, but let's see what people are saying about the pro-immigration thing. What's this? Pro-immigration isn't a bad thing, but the road we're on is utterly horrible. It's horrible. Yeah, it's absolutely horrible. The road that we're on. Yeah, I'm not anti-immigration. I'm very much pro-immigration. My parents are both immigrants to Canada, and my wife's an immigrant to Canada. I have lots of friends that are immigrants to Canada. It's a good thing as long as we do it right. And that's the way things ought to be. Absolutely. But yeah, that's my opinion on that one anyway. And everybody can have theirs. Holy shnikes, yeah, holy. Diener, Diener, how you been? I haven't seen you in a minute. But yeah, you're on top chat again. Let me fix that. How do I do that? Because this happened last week. What is the difference? It doesn't look any different to me. But hey, let's check this out. This is how the live chat looks compared to top chat. But yeah, here we are. Which is completely weird for me. Pierre says immigration should match housing in hospitals and schools, etc. That sounds about right. Chippy Outdoors says my mom is an immigrant from the Philippines. I know many people that are immigrants from the Philippines. Great people, by the way. Weaponized mass immigration. Yes. And this is the thing. So I covered this in the story today. We were talking about this, and I might as well pull this up now because we're going to end up talking about the other story at length tonight. That's going to be quite a big one. But this was a story that popped up, and I found this pretty interesting, to say the least. So this was a GoFundMe that came out, and this was based off of the subreddit, if you're familiar with it, and that's the Canada Housing 2.0 subreddit. Now, this subreddit is all about Canada's housing, and it's 2.0 largely, I think, because the 1.0 got pulled down for censorship and all that stuff. But this one's been alive for a while, and they've been talking about all the issues in Canada surrounding the housing problems and what's led to these housing issues. Like, for example, here's one. New Canadian dream, 4 people in 1 room. Hey, guess what? There's a room for rent location there. 1 room, number of people, 4. How much? Way too much. That's where we're at. But anyway, what came from this was this post, and this I thought it was a really cool idea. And this is GoFundMe, which is okay. At the time of filming this, it was at 2,905. Let's refresh and see where it's at now. Dun da da da! It's already just today at 5,865. People want to see these billboards. They want them to go up, and they want them to spread awareness. Spread awareness. Now, how much awareness really needs to be spread? Because well, we'll get into that in a second. But the billboard says no jobs, no rentals, 188,000 homes built, and 1.27 million newcomers in 2023. That's 1,270,000 newcomers for the 188,000 homes built. It's just unsustainable. You can't do this. It's unbelievable. Richard Hughes with a 279 super chat. Thank you so much. Clyde, thoughts on Dan Dix, Press for Truth work? I like Dan Dix. I've talked to Dan Dix before. I've had him on the show, and yeah, he's a nice guy. I don't know. I think he's a good guy. I think he does great work. So that's Dan Dix. Unfortunately, he got spanked pretty hard on YouTube during COVID, and he had his channel taken down. And he's got another channel that has very low subscribership. So I'd recommend people go over there, subscribe, and get those numbers going again for him. Speaking of which, I gotta have him on the show again, because if by the time I leave, we live in the same town, by the way, and I gotta have him on before I leave town. That's something I gotta do. But yeah, Dan Dix, great guy. Lorraine with a $50 super chat. Thank you. Wow, thank you so much. Pizza and Wobbly Pops, thank you for excellent reporting. Really appreciate that. And I've got Wobbly Pops going on right now. I hope everybody else has got a Wobbly Pop happening. We had chili tonight. I guess it's pizza tomorrow. Thank you so much, Lorraine. Really appreciate that. We're going to have to make sure that happens. Everybody get your Wobbly Pops out. Make sure it's happening. Leave a comment in the chat. Are you having a Wobbly Pop tonight with your old buddy Clyde? Are you having a Wobbly Pop? Is this something you're doing? We got something coming out actually pretty shortly. This is something that's been in the works for a while. As you know, I had a store. I had a merchandise shop, and it was not working out. It was not working out. It was pretty bad. This whole print on demand, order, third party thing, just too many problems. People were not getting their shipments. I was having to issue refunds, and there was lots and lots of just problem. And I know you guys have been bugging. Where's the merch? Where are we gonna have some merch? Where are we gonna have some stuff? We are making that happen, and it's in the works, and it's right around the corner. I think it's like this week even, or possibly by next weekend. I think next live stream that we do, there will be an announcement for that. And I'll tell you what, it's not going to be any of this drop ship stuff. It's going to be limited supply run shirt designs or merch items. I don't know. It's going to change through time, but I have a great person running this shop, and he's going to be taking care of it all. It's all going to be done personally. So it's not going to be one of those things where it's impersonal. It's some weird thing, some, third party doing the stuff. We got some stuff coming. It's going to be fun. Some fun designs as well as, your favorite, maybe your second favorite drink. Your morning drink will be provided for you. And I guarantee you it is going to be good stuff if you're a coffee connoisseur. But we'll get that coming for you. I just wanted to drop that teaser. I think it might be next week that we do the announcement for this. Chris with a $10 super chat. As a lifelong car enthusiast, I'm happy reality is kicking in where Ford and Benz are pulling back from the EV programs. I predicted that the EV fantasy would fall apart under a decade. You're right. Now, I honestly believe that there's a place for EVs. I think that's a great thing. The new technologies that have come out, I like, or just even technologies that have been around for a long time but are just finally being implemented. Great new inverters in these cars. You have good technology there. You have great technology with brushless motors these days. They're great. They're torquey. They're amazing. I just don't think battery storage is where it's at. I just don't think that's where it's at. And I think that Edison Motors is on a really great path towards success. And I've been phone tagging with Chase Barber for a few months now. I'm going to try to get him on the show. I have a really crazy schedule, and especially with all the moves. And then he he is the guy who runs Edison Motors, so you can imagine his schedule. I really want to bring him on because I think he's in the right path for things. I think the whole diesel generator with electric motors, best way to go. We can even incorporate gasoline engines to do the same thing. I just think that the hybrid model is way more efficient, even more efficient than just having a gas engine, just having a diesel driving your axles. I think that we should go the way of the locomotives. I think that's the future. And yeah, I agree with you. This experiment is it's a bad go. But I think with what Ford and Benz are doing by pulling out of the EV programs, they're getting themselves back to making vehicles that people want, but also they're inching towards that direction. And the hybrid market, I think, is going to be a really good market in the future. And it'll take some guys, like Edison Motors, to really push forward and push the ball forward. But I think that's where we're going with it. Thank you for the super chat, Chris, by the way. Big Shroom with the $5 super chat. No wobbly pops, but a doobie to celebrate BC gaining some common sense. Thanks for your reporting, my man. Well, I hope you're not getting your hopes up too high. There are some caveats to all of this, and we're going to get into a bunch of that tonight. And I've also reached out to Corinne Morey. You've probably seen her on the show before. She's at the front line of all of this stuff, and reached out to her. Didn't get back from her just yet today, but we're going to get in touch with her. So there's going to be more on this story coming in the days and throughout the week here. So thank you for the super chat there. Al Stewart, thank you for the $10 super chat. Really appreciate that. I quit drinking during fire season because I go on nasty rants about BC Wildfire Service. Maybe I'll have to go on one of those for you tonight. Holy cow. I really appreciate that. No, you're absolutely right on that one. Nail on the head for sure. Chris with a $2 super chat. To add hybrids, plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, and hydrogen will take over. Yeah, I totally agree with you. I'm on the same page as you. I think this push to battery storage is the wrong direction. It's the wrong direction. It doesn't mean that some cars won't just only have battery storage, plug-in electric cars. It's just not where the market's going to go as a whole. I just don't see that taking off, and I don't see that being something that's even worthwhile in the long run. I think, and without going too far into it, the energy loss by getting your electricity from the grid and then stored in batteries there's more energy loss there than the 40% efficiency that you get out of a diesel engine. And you'll get more efficiency out of that diesel engine if it's peak load and peak RPM all the time, right? Anytime you run it, it's always peak load and peak RPM. You'll get more efficiency than if you're driving axles with it. If you're driving the axles with an electric motor, which is more than 95% efficient on average, yeah, you're gonna get better efficiency by having these hybrid vehicles. And I can't. I need to do a whole panel on that one night. That's got to be a topic for the show, because yeah, that's a thing. It's the same thing with these, heat pumps. I'm a big proponent of more efficient things where they're applicable, and heat pumps, believe it or not, like say in the Lower Mainland or out in on the island, the southern coast of the island, or even largely through a lot of places in the United States down south or different areas, especially down south where you sometimes get winter, but you mostly need air conditioning. Those places are really more efficient, and the satellite goes over and breaks the connection and you're buffering for a second. Sorry. Yeah, where was I? If you're in a place that drops down to -40, there's not a lot of heat in -40 to pull through a heat pump. It's just inefficient. And when governments try to pick winners and losers and try to tell you what's going to be the best technology, the more efficient thing for that marketplace, or for you to be forced into buying, yeah, they're not going to pick the most proficient and the most efficient things, because they're dumb and they don't know. And I mean, you don't have to look further than the COVID pandemic to find out how poorly things can be implemented. As long as they have the power to implement it on you, that's all they care, though. Isn't that really the scheme? Anyway, we were talking about immigration until we went on that tangent. I could talk about cars all night long. I mean, I'm an automotive service technician. I've been in the industry for a very long time. I've been around cars for even longer, and yeah, I could talk about that all night. I should make that a thing, though. We should make that one evening where we talk about the car industry and all the ins and outs about it, and then we can do another one on heat pumps. Pumps are not made for Canadian weather. No, they're not. Anyway, let's get into this. So this is the Billboard GoFundMe campaign. I was saying that they should have gone with Give, Send, Go, perhaps, especially with a campaign like this. Who knows? They might get taken down, doxxed, ripped off. Who knows what'll end up happening? The DDoS attacks, that kind of thing. Okay, we'll get into more of these. Kyler in Canada, with all K's, with a $10 super chat. Really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Have you heard of the plasmoid thunderstorm generator? Google it. It reduces CO2 emissions from internal combustion engines to zero. Invention was released to the internet. It also converts internal combustion engines emissions to oxygen. I'm not familiar with that. I didn't know that. So the reason why they keep going after CO2 and not any of the other emissions anymore these days is because largely catalysts and efficiency. So like engine efficiency and then catalysts in like substrates in your exhaust have really cleaned up emissions tremendously. A majority of what comes out of your tailpipe is CO2, carbon monoxide. Well, there is some carbon monoxide, but it's mostly CO2 and water vapor. Like, it really is. There's some nitrogens, and there's nitrogens that are bad and nitrogens that are okay that are coming out of there, which they want to reduce as well. But the reason why we don't have air care here in British Columbia anymore is cars weren't failing. That's the reality of the situation. But thank you so much. And we're getting back on the car talk. Thank you so much, Kyler. I appreciate that. G-Meister member for 25 months. It's been some time. That's crazy. Amazing. It says 1 or 2 super chats missed a few minutes ago. Hit the like button. Did I miss a few super chats? Let me roll back up and make sure I don't miss any. Apologies if I missed any. Al Stewart. No, I got that one. Big Shroom. Chris. I got those ones. Unless somehow they weren't in the... What? I'm seeing all the ones that I read. So I hope I didn't miss anybody's super chats, but I'm seeing all the ones that I've read. So apologies if I've missed any. Let me know, absolutely. Let me get back down to the bottom of the chat here. Now, we were going to talk about immigration, and we can talk about that all day long. You can go check out my video this morning where I was talking about this, because that awesome story. A lot of people getting together to make a lot of cool different things happen here in Canada, to raise awareness on what is actually a really crazy issue. But let's talk more about let's talk more about this in particular, what I started the stream off with. So I'll play this video again so you can see, and then I want to get into the discussion because there's a little bit more that meets the eye on this one.
We have reached the point in this journey that we've been on where I am confident that we can now lift the requirements of a public health emergency. So effective immediately today, July 26th, we will be ending the public health emergency for COVID-19 and be rescinding the few related orders that are still in place. And that includes rescinding the PHO order requiring COVID vaccination to work in our healthcare system. We have reached the point in this journey that we've been on.
Oh boy, what truth is actually out there to be had in this situation? I'd love to get to the bottom of it. And someone else that's been helping get to the bottom of this is my next guest that I'm bringing on. And we're going to start the panel with Odessa here. I'd love to bring you on. Hey, Odessa, thanks for joining me today. Oh, you're muted, so you could just unmute there.
So last second.
Very last second, but I saw your tweet and I wanted to get to this because just a quick introductory. Odessa is a fellow reporter on the internet, does the same stuff that I'm doing here, but I'd like to say better and with a prettier face. And obviously getting down to some of the nitty gritty in these cases. And wow, you nailed it today because I wanted to do some digging. I didn't have any time. You'd already done it by the time I got home to talk about this. But you put out a tweet, and I'm just going to up on the screen because I think people need to see this. The tweet here saying, wait, the NB Bonnie lying about no mandates just for votes. BC healthcare workers are all starting to send each other messages about what the documents are saying. So without just reading your whole tweet, let's get into it. What are these workers saying about the measures that they're bringing in now?
So of course I uploaded the video like you did of Bonnie and all that. And then right away, healthcare workers start saying, no, there's fine print. To be honest, I'm waiting for Corinne Maury, who is heading up nurses trying to get their jobs back. She is like, I'm putting info out. This looks like a scam, you know, she said in so many words. But the first thing we're hearing is you have to either show your vaccination or show immunity to all these different diseases. But they won't say out loud how you show your immunity. So then I've been asking questions. Does that mean they're forced to take blood tests? And where do those blood tests go? Because right now, I don't know if everyone's aware, but blood and blood plasma is one of the most sought after in big pharma ingredients right now. So I want to know when these healthcare workers are forced to do blood tests, they need to ask Bonnie, Adrian Dix, and Ebby, will they just be testing for immunity or will they be making money off their blood being sent to big pharma? I wanted to get that out there as a question because they've been caught before using people's DNA and blood for testing without getting permission. That's a whole nother question. It's up to the healthcare workers if they care. But another healthcare worker just put out a message saying, you have to read the fine print. They're all going through it right now, the fine print. And one of them said, it looks like there's a 2-year window. So these people that got fired was 3-4 years ago. So there's already all these loopholes that it looks like you have to go to. You are welcome to apply, and that's it. There's nothing about getting your seniority back, your job back, and then you have to prove immunity. But Corinne Maury is saying this is actually the next step. I call it of the World Health Organization, you know, complete control of your body and no anonymity, because what they want to do is now they want to find out every single vaccine you've had, including the flu shot, whereas before you didn't have to tell, including the COVID-19. And from there, you have to prove immunity to these diseases to have your job. They didn't say how. So they've left it open to everybody starting to ask questions. And Corinne on Facebook, Corinne Maury, she has said she's going through everything. This looks like it's actually really bad. And she's going to come out with everything as soon as she can.
Well, that'd be great. Yeah. So I sent a message to Corrine because I've had her on the show several times now, and she's fantastic. She's been really on top of this for the whole time. I mean, she was one of the nurses that got fired, so obviously she had some free time on her hands, and she's been utilizing that quite well. But yeah, she and rightly so, pointing at the fact that this seems like a chess match, which is what she said in one post. uh like there's something skeevy going on behind the scenes, and it's really to screw over the workers. Not only that, I think they don't want to make amends with the people that they've fired. And I don't think they're looking for that. What they're looking for is the political angle on this. And here's what I tweeted out. I put this one out there today. Whoops, I gotta switch over here. I put this out. Breaking news. British Columbia's health officer, Bonnie Henry, has announced that she's looked at the medical data and now feels confident that over 2,000 nurses, doctors, and healthcare workers she fired over vaccine choice can go back to work. The data suggests, oh, sorry, wrong picture. This is the picture of the poll data.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right. This is probably what suggests why they're making announcements today, why they're talking about this, because they have an election coming up in the fall, and they're losing popularity. And I know Adrian Dix and Bonnie Henry, they're not exactly politicians voting for re-election, but I don't think they're going to keep their job at the end of the day when the next government comes in. So they're playing politics with the healthcare system for the NDP to save their jobs, in my estimate, in my opinion anyway, in this one.
100%.
And that's disgusting.
No, 100% it's about the polling. Everybody knows it. They just said, we aren't going to budge on this. This is science. Well, the scam, though, is they're telling the media, they're telling the BC community, we're going to bring them back. That's just not true. The hoops that these people have to go through to get back on is not going to be everyone's back within a week. They don't care about the missing healthcare workers right now. It's going to take forever for these people to get their jobs back.
Yeah, it's crazy. Sorry, I just skipped out there. I'm on Starlink, so every once in a while the satellite goes over and I lose a connection. Again, moving this week, so I'll have better internet coming forward. But yeah, this is a crazy story, completely a political turn. This is I don't see it any other way, and neither does the Conservatives who are calling this one out. And they're saying, what is the difference from yesterday or a month ago or several months ago? This is clearly political. Every day, or every other jurisdiction in North America has already hired back workers. British Columbia should not have to wait for an election to have our healthcare workers hired back, and this is the reality of it. And we even have Bruce Banman coming out today saying, 1 month ago, Ebby was defending the mandates and mocking those who oppose him, and he had this to say today.
Hey everybody, I'm Bruce Banman, and I'm in front of the Abbotsford Regional Hospital and Cancer Center, and if you're a healthcare worker, guess what? The pressure from the Conservative Party of British Columbia finally paid off. Dr. Henry and David Eby finally caved. The mandates are over. You're going to get your jobs back. I want to tell you, I have been pushing for a long time for this. And as a matter of fact, Kevin Falcon's on there taking credit for it right now. I left the United Party over this very issue. They forced me to vote on a bill in the House that basically said Dr. Henry was the greatest thing since sliced bread. I'll tell you what, it was wrong then. Kevin will do anything and say anything to get rehired, and so will Eby, apparently. He's realized he's on the wrong side of this issue. 3 months out before an election, there's only one reason why a month ago he's on the Mo Amir show basically saying he'll never let go of the mandates, and now he caved because he knows he's going to lose and the Conservatives are going to win. Make sure you remember who had your back if you're a healthcare worker. It was the Conservative Party of British Columbia. I pushed hard for it, and I'm so happy you're going to get your jobs back.
Now that sounds really optimistic, and I love to think the optimism about it. But so in British Columbia, we're suffering. We don't have enough healthcare workers, whether it's doctors, nurses, any other kind of practitioner, technician. We're super short on all of this stuff. They fired, and people were correcting me in my comments today saying, It's more like 4,000, maybe even higher. Like it's a much larger number than you're even saying, Clyde. And I'll concede to that. It's probably a lot larger than that. But the
It is.
reality of the situation, we're so far out from when this occurred that one, it could be a situation where people are they're not going to get to go back because of technicalities. But what about the flip side of this? So many people said, screw it, I'm never going back to that trade, and I'm never working for you ever again. Fool me once, right? And or they said, forget it, I'm leaving the country and I'm going to take my skills with me, or I'm leaving the province and I'm going to take my skills with me. Forget British Columbia. They can go sit on a lemon, or whatever the expression is.
Yep. It's true. And, a lot of them moved to Alberta, but any hope that Bonnie and them had, it's fake hope. This was all for votes. She doesn't want these people in her hospital, but any hope they had of maybe a certain percentage going back is now going to be almost null and void because of the loopholes they're making people who stood for bodily autonomy the first time. Now they're saying, we want your records for every single vaccine and the immunity in your blood of every single disease we ask for, meaning private medical information. Well, a lot of the healthcare workers, including like Dr. Sang, who did the lawsuit, said, my private medical information is my private medical information. This is Canada. We are not living in Nazi Germany. So no, that goes against laws, that goes against Canadian ethics. But what they're saying now is, not only did you guys need a passport or a COVID jab to get a job, now we're coming in even stricter. And he named off like 6 different diseases and vaccines where they want to know if you have immunity or the vaccine. So now there's less bodily, privacy than before. And so those people that were considering going back are now seeing these loopholes that they have to jump through. And how long will it take to get these blood tests, and on and on and on? And the thing is, I was just speaking to someone who's actually part of the BC Conservative Party earlier today, and he said that he lives up north and he knows for a fact the BS that there was only 4 people at a certain hospital that Adrian Dix quoted today that lost their jobs. He goes, I know people. That is so not true. It's hundreds of people that are in that health community. So Adrian's just lying about how few people actually were let go.
Yeah, it really is. It's disgusting at how, I mean, especially after we just proved how horrible our healthcare system is already, and then they pull that one. It makes you wonder what their actual motives are behind it, and we can pontificate on what those motives might be. But I've another person here who wants to jump on the stage as well, who loves to pontificate and does it on Twitter all the time. I've joined on a few of the Twitter Spaces. If you're not familiar, it's similar to this but without video. This is government.exe is corrupt. Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me on. How's the mic? Can you hear me loud and clear?
Loud and clear. You sound great.
Perfect. I'm not too familiar with your other guests, but hi, I'm Kevin. Government is corrupt.
You actually do know me because you comment on my stuff all the time. I'm Odessa Orlowitz.
Oh, okay. So I do know. I just didn't know your face. So nice to meet you in person, or as close to his person as possible.
Nice. I love having this is like my first panel. So we've got, I think Marty and Wyatt might be joining us later as well. So welcome to the show, Odessa. And do I just call you Government is Corrupt, or
you can just call me Gov. Gov is easy.
Gov. Okay. Gov works. Gov. So we're weighing in on this whole situation with the British Columbia government, last in the world to chime in and actually drop their mandates. And it's starting, like, we're hours into it, and it's already looking like it's a sham. It's not really anything that they were planning on doing. They didn't want to do it. Maybe even in the fine details, the fine print, it's not much of a lift of mandates. But at the end of the day, it just seems to be a political decision because it looks like they're losing in the polls. What say you?
Well, at the end of the day, these things were, egregious to begin with. And, I just heard quickly what Odessa, I believe it's Odessa, right? You said that only a few people were let go. But, if we revert back to the Pareto principle, we always have to revert back to the Pareto principle. 20% of the staff was probably let go. So I'm not too sure how many people there were that were employed under the in the healthcare sector in BC, but there was probably about a good 20% of them that was let go. And I do seem to remember this. What was his name? Horgan. He was calling a health emergency and firing all these people, and then not too much longer after that, he found out that he had cancer. And what did he do? Skip the front of the line and said, "Screw everybody else on the waiting list." So this is how these people operate.
It's absolutely how they operate. Let's not forget Horgan when he retired as BC NDP leader and premier of the province. He went on to go to the coal board after making sure that no pipelines were coming in, no natural gas, no anything else. And it turns out, he's got a bunch of buddies in the coal industry. This is really how the industry works here in British Columbia. I have another guest I want to add to this stage, and tonight we have Wyatt Claypool. Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. It's a lot of fun to always swing by here every once in a while. It's great. I don't actually have to post the show or do any editing or anything like that, or even host a stream. I can just show up and be, completely undone or whatever.
So you've been following BC politics quite closely for someone who lives in Alberta. I've watched a couple of your shows where you're talking about one particular thing that actually I hadn't thought of, and I thought was pretty ingenious actually, that you spotted this, was the fact that, because people have been saying that the BC United, which were formerly the Liberals here in British Columbia, are splitting the vote between conservatives. And you brought up the point that all of the conservatives that were in that party have already migrated. They're gone. They're not even in the BC United anymore. And it's all like basically federal liberal voters that are with BC United. And they are, in fact, if anything, splitting the vote from the NDP. Can you elaborate a little more on that?
Yeah, no, and there might be like 1 or 2% of people left for the Conservatives to steal from United. I don't think many are left. In federal polling, the federal Conservatives poll anywhere from 43% up to 50%, depending on the poll. And so right now, the Conservatives maybe have 3 or 4% more left to go, 4 or 5. But right at this point, the United are more of a drag on the NDP than they are on the Conservatives, because anything that the United Party has left when they're polling only 9% in the recent Main Street poll, that's pretty much all federal Liberals that they're preventing from going towards the NDP, because a lot of federal Liberal voters may be a bit nervous for voting for the Conservatives. So right now, I guarantee most of them are Green and NDP voters voting United. Maybe they don't like Rusted. Maybe they don't like the Conservatives because they're, rational. But they're not quite willing to vote EB because they do think he's insane. So that's like the great thing that I like about United, that they're actually keeping a lot of federal Liberals from going towards the NDP. Actually, though, I'm going to correct you. I'm not in Alberta right now. I'm actually out in Abbotsford helping the BC Conservatives try and win the Fraser Valley.
Oh, good on you.
Everyone keeps criticizing the way I say Fraser Valley. I guess it's Fraser. What is it?
Fraser. I live near
Fraser.
there. Fraser Valley.
Fraser. People are saying like you're saying it like the actual television show Frasier. I don't see the difference. I feel like I'm going insane. Although I actually am using a Fraser cup here. I have the KACL 780 cup or whatever.
Yeah. It's not like Fraser. It's like Fraser, like ZER.
I don't even understand what the difference is supposed to be there.
Oh, yeah. Fraser has more of like a G sound, G,
I feel like I'm
it's
actually
different.
like
Anyway.
crazy calls when people keep saying, no, it's actually Fraser, not Fraser. Like, what?
Okay, if you can't hear it, that's funny. It's the same as the Fraser Institute.
I
It's the
see
Fraser
the very
Institute.
subtle difference, but while you're talking, I don't really see. I only even think a normal person could detect that, but people in my comments keep telling me I say it wrong.
Oh, that's too funny.
You're so cute. The way he's saying it's so cute.
So the news that came out today is that the BC NDP has made the announcement that they're pulling the mandates. They're pulling the mandates. The final place on the planet, I guess, that had mandates still on their medical workers to not come back. They've been fired, not welcome back to work. They're saying that they're lifting this. They've had a change of heart in the last 5 minutes, and now they're going to let them back. Big political move is my estimate. They're trying to do that, and it doesn't like some people in the industry are already quick to say this isn't going to be so peachy keen. It's not going to be easy to go back to work anyway.
Can I give another, just because no one's answered yet, can I give a devil's advocate to my own thing that I said?
Sure.
The other way of us looking at this, because we're not going to know until Corrine comes out, we're not going to know until the next 30 days what's actually happening with our hero healthcare workers that said no to mandates. The other thing is Bonnie's always trying to please all the people that she's fear-porned over this virus. So by them saying you have to prove immunity, we're going to make sure that we are offering you all the vaccines, that when vaccines become available for all these diseases now and future, that we're going to ask you to give your status and we're going to offer you the vaccine. A part of me wonders if she's trying to please the people that she's made crazy scared by saying, oh, it's not going to be that easy. We're going to make sure they have immunity. Because a person today in my healthcare worker friend group on Facebook, not that I'm a healthcare worker, but she said, Odessa, I've already gotten a call today from my former employer to come back, and was saying, I don't know how I feel about this. I'm so torn, my heart, da-da-da. So I just said, go for a walk in nature, put it out to the universe, what's right for you. There's no wrong answer. So somebody I know has already gotten the call. So maybe they'll just start bringing people back, forget Bonnie Henry and Adrian Dix, all this, you have to prove immunity and all this stuff. Maybe they're just going to bring them back. And this is something they're feeding to the public so they're not fearful. I don't know, like the next 30 days, we're going to find out. But I think moving forward, the hammer's coming down where you have no privacy of any of these diseases anymore.
Well, I think one thing too. Sorry, I'll go quickly. I think one thing too, when they say that you have to prove immunity, all they're saying is you have to prove compliance. That's all they're saying. You have to prove compliance. There's nothing other than compliance.
It may be that basically they keep the rules vague enough, and that's why the call was immediately made. That just basically wave a stick over them, and we've checked them, because while Bonnie Henry needs a smooth off ramp, she's not going to put any actual real rules in place on how you bring people back. Another thing I had heard today that was a good theory on why Bonnie Henry had gone along with this, because she's the type of person who's a true believer, who even at a time when the NDP doesn't want to talk about expanding safe supply, comes out with her report making them look like complete morons. That what she was on board with is that this helps shut down a lot of the lawsuits against the mandates all across the province, is that she can do this, and then a lot of these healthcare workers and other individuals suddenly lose standing in court. She no longer has to testify, and all these things can go away, or at the very least, the legal cases have to be put on hold, reorganized, you have to refile, and it kind of gets that to go away. The funny thing as well, for a third thing to add on here, I was just door knocking in Abbotsford South Riding, and I actually bumped into a couple of people who literally at the door, they're NDP supporters or Green or whatever, and they're actually mad at Bonnie Henry, and they're like, she's not taking long COVID seriously. She doesn't care about maskers anymore. It's actually hilarious that this might not only, because every single conservative voter is going to be like, see, we told you, these people are idiots, and they're not going to come over to the NDP. And some of the NDP voters might even say, they've abandoned us. They've abandoned all of us COVID-conscious voters, and they're going to stay home because this person told me they don't even know who to vote for at this point.
That's crazy, though. I mean, just the level of brainwashed that some people actually are at this point. I mean, you see them out there every once in a while walking around with masks and...
One of the ladies, super nice, but she even said, you know, everyone does call me a conspiracy theorist, and I guess I'm a conspiracy theorist on the left, but I still think it's just a big deal. And I would bring up things like, well, don't you think that, like, in terms of health issues, that the conservatives cutting taxes will mean less people have to eat ramen noodles every day, and that's probably better for your health to actually have some, like, you know, to be able to buy actual health products again, rather than just putting on masks every day. And they're like, yeah, no, I get that, but and it was just that there's COVID obsession that made people feel important, that I'm doing things to protect other people, and they can't drop it. Nice people, but I think that they felt like heroes, and they don't want to put that down.
Is that the next campaign slogan, or is conservatives ending scurvy in Canada once and for all?
Yeah.
I think one of the things that, you know, the COVID hysteria and, you know, what happened to the healthcare system across the country is that the government should not have that much control in the healthcare system. And then as soon as we start talking about privatization, this is the problem. People will say America this and America that, like they're the only other country on the planet that is offering healthcare. Like a lot of the more successful healthcare programs in the world are two-tiered healthcare. You have a publicly funded healthcare. On top of that, you have private healthcare. Now, if we can't even entertain that conversation, because as soon as we start talking about it, you automatically get shut down, saying you hate Canada, you hate our system, you want everybody to die, you want them to go bankrupt because they can't afford their medical bills. But you know, at the end of the day, I believe that two-tier is a very reasonable solution to even start talking about.
Well, here's the thing in the United States, they're not even a private system. What it is that you have 60%, 70% of people paying for insurance to get health care, and you have 30% of people who pay nothing, and they get health care anyways through Medicare, Medicaid, and all these other systems, Obamacare when it existed. That was the problem, is that 70% of people are paying the 100% of the cost for the other people. So they're not actually private, they're a fake private system.
Well, they're an oligopoly, right?
Yeah, a really, really good system. It's an obscure country. I've done reports on it before. Is Georgia, the country in the Caucasus, not the state in the United States. They actually have a fully private system, effectively, with a small attached universal system added on. All the hospitals are private. All the insurance companies are private. The only thing the government does is that if you live below the poverty line, they give you a stipend that you can then go and use as a private insurance company. And because there's a dozen private insurance companies, they all bend over backwards to try and give you as much healthcare as possible for your government minimum allowance. But then other people can still put on another $20, $30 a month onto their plans to upgrade them. And it's a country where, compared to Canada, we have about 105, 102 doctors per 100,000 people. In Georgia, a country where people have incomes of a tenth of Canada, they have like 350 doctors, 312 doctors per 100,000 people, because there's incentives to becoming a doctor, because you can be your own businessman as a doctor. You can work for any private hospital you want, and you're actually going to be respected, not be basically a work mule like you are in Canada.
And that's
I
the
think
problem
you
with
nailed
Canada.
something right there, and that was the idea of a price mechanism. You're talking about getting, even if it's a stipend, you're getting a allotted amount of money to spend on hospital visits, that kind of thing. That is a price mechanism. It works as a price mechanism, and it gets doctors to negotiate the prices down. We see a similar thing in the United States with what they call a medical savings plan. It's different than a third-party payer system like medical insurance, where you have your insurance money that you're given to from your employer goes into a savings account, and a portion of that's set off for catastrophic insurance, life-threatening things, cancer, that kind of thing. But your average use, say you got to go to the doctor to have something removed, or you want to go to the doctor to fix a tooth, or any of these ailments, or just a sick note because you called in sick at work, you have to you have to go in and you have to say, I don't have conventional insurance, and I'd like to purchase this service. And it actually encourages people to negotiate prices down, because at the end of the year, what they don't spend, they get to keep. And there's an incentive there that they get to keep the remainder of the funds that they were given by their employer. I like it. I'm a big fan of the whole idea of incentives in a marketplace and creating a market mechanism for prices to function.
You know what I think? We are so corrupted here in BC that the government doesn't want to lose any control of the healthcare workers, the people in BC. If they start letting things go private, they lose control. And Corinne Maury is about to come out with another even huger story than she's already shared with us about a massive billion-dollar scam that they have discovered. And so if they let too many things go private, there goes their skimming, there goes their investments.
Well,
it's all about admin. They're making more and more money off admin garbage and less money spent on what we actually need, which is doctors and nurses and training and all that.
It's going to come to a point where they're not going to have a choice. The free market is going to force their hand. I mean, take a look at, I believe it was Sweden in the early mid-90s. They had a full universal system. Their housing bubble collapsed. That was a large percentage of their economy. They could no longer afford universal, went into private, a two-tier system. And that two-tier system, what they generated from the private sector improved the quality in the public sector, drove costs down, and was able to actually give people more access to healthcare. So it's going to come to a point where our governments are no longer going to be able to afford this because they're no longer going to be able to borrow because nobody is going to want to lend to them.
So we do have a two-tier system in Canada. I mean, we have the Canadian healthcare system, and then you have the United States of America, where everybody pleads to get real. No, all joking aside, in British Columbia, and because I spoke to Dr. William Day, and he was the main doctor from the Cambie Surgical Clinic that was having a fight with the Supreme Court in British Columbia for 12 years. And it was just recently finalized that, no, they shut him down. They said, no, you can't do this. And he was trying to bring about an opportunity for private clinicians to actually take some of the burden off of the medical service in British Columbia, take some of the burden off so that, people can get their services, but then other people will have availability in the other service. What was crazy to me, what I found out when I was speaking to him, is that there actually are people in British Columbia that are allowed to go to the Cambie Surgical Clinic. They're allowed to go there and have private medical done, but it's only government officials, including Supreme Court justices and prisoners in British Columbia. Believe it or not, if you're in the custody of British Columbia under the penal system, you can go to a private medical clinic. But your average British Columbian that just needs a service done cannot go. And now, even at this point, they're even taking people who need cancer surgeries and they're actually shipping them to the United States to have these procedures done when there's a clinic right downtown Vancouver willing to do this.
Well, notice when John Horgan needed cancer treatment for the third time, tragically, he didn't come back to British Columbia. He stayed in Germany, where you can actually get service done. And like the thing is, what people miss here, and this is where the BC NDP get a lot of propaganda mileage out of, is that we're trying to keep the medical system in the public's interest, not the private's interest, not for profit. I even talk to people who are conservative voters who still don't like the idea that someone's profiting off of like medical procedures. And I'm telling them, guys, somebody has to profit at the end of the day, regardless. You don't go to work to get no money. Obviously, you don't work for charity. And the thing is that you have to realize, or people have to realize in general, the public service public bureaucracy, it doesn't matter that's the public sector. Just because the public sector doesn't mean that its interest is the public interest. The thing is that a lot, and this is the problem in Alberta especially, because we spend the most per capita on healthcare, and until a David Eby fired the nurses and doctors, but now is apparently bringing them back, we have the longest wait times despite the fact we spend the most per capita, because the spending's not the problem, it's the allocation. If you're a private deliverer, you are incentivized, even if the government's paying you through a single payer system. If you're private delivery, you have incentive to get the procedure done as fast as possible so you can keep as much of the money as possible, not hiring worthless people doing paperwork about nothing all day long. Even the candidate I'm working for, Bruce Banman, the MLA for Abbotsford South, he had a issue with his hand that he needed a minor surgery for, and he had to wait for 3 years because the BC healthcare system wanted his doctor to do it in a actual medical theater in a hospital when he could have done the procedure in his own house. In his own office. It's insane, or probably his house too. It's a super minor surgery. But because they need the monopoly, they need the 5 or 6 people justified in having their jobs. So rather than his doctor doing the surgery within basically a couple hours, he had to wait 3 years to book a medical theater so he could do a minor hand surgery. But it's just about justifying a bunch of people's jobs, a bunch of people's, frankly, fake jobs.
I got a super chat that's directed at you, Wyatt. David Edwards for $5. Thank you so much. He says, this is for Wyatt. Next time you run in a BC riding, they need you more than Alberta. It might be less cluttered with conservative candidates as well.
Yeah, well, yeah, I don't think I've been on your show since I got kicked out of that nomination in Calgary Signal Hill. The good thing is I can update.
I wanted to have you on for that.
Yeah. I think I should talk about it. I can literally sum it up in 30 seconds. So they kicked me out. They had no reason. I heard from national counselors themselves they had no reason. They basically made a 9-page dossier on me full of excuses to get rid of me. It was like Wyatt follows pro-life groups on social media, ergo get rid of them. Wyatt criticized Andrew Scheer and the party's 2019 campaign, ergo get rid of them. They literally lost. You should criticize them. But the guy I was running against, the main guy who was kind of like, in league with people in the back of the party, Jenny Byrne, wanted Jeremy Nixon to win. I still went scorched earth because I had a list of 1,100 separate households I had signed up or I had been in contact with in some way. And so Jeremy Nixon, the person that certain lobbyists in the back end wanted to win, he won by a single vote on election night. And then the national counselors had gotten fed up with Jenny Byrne, her crap. So they forced a recount and he lost by 7 votes. So the guy who won's kind of a bit more of a fiscal conservative, but not really a social conservative. I don't love everything about him, but Jeremy Nixon didn't win. So success story. But yeah, maybe I'll have to think about running in BC next time. I don't mind Abbotsford.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm not a big fan of the social conservative stuff. I'm all about the fiscal.
Let's put it this way: the things that you're in favor of stopping is considered a social conservative issue. So if you oppose gender theory, you're a social conservative. That's my point. The guy who won is like quiet on all social and cultural issues.
That's fair. I think the angle comes different. I mean, because I come from like a libertarian sort of perspective, it's more of don't tread on me, don't tread on my family, don't get in my way. Less of any sort of religiosity to it, but to each your own. That's your whole shtick. That's the whole bit. I want to kind of guide the conversation in another direction right now. We've been talking a lot about immigration lately. This has been a huge thing. It's kind of at a precipice right now where the public is figuring out that the government is trying to pull a fast one on us, bring 100 million people for some what have you. What would you call that? A utopian idea of what the future of Canada might look like by having 100 million people in our population. Of course, not doing any of the other stuff like infrastructure building, any of that. Just the millions and millions of people coming in the country. Now, a National Post article came out, and this is where things are starting to get a little bit more popular. I'm gonna have to switch pages here. National Post says 60% of Canadians say Canada is admitting too many immigrants. Now we're at a point where it's actually getting to a point where this is actually becoming a national conversation. It wasn't a national conversation. You're a bigot of some sort or whatever if you happen to bring this conversation piece up before. But now that there's been these scams, scamming Indian students to come over to Canada and become next in line for permanent residence to this backdoor type immigration stuff. People are waking up to it. It says here, new Ledger poll was conducted from July 12th through July 15th. Percentage saying there were too many new immigrants, 60%. It's the highest that this pollster has seen in the century, and is more than double the 28% who felt that way back in 2006. Now, we've been talking with you a ton, Wyatt, so I just want to get government gov's perspective on this first, and then we'll go around. But I want to ask, what is your perspective on this sort of change in popular opinion throughout the country?
Well, it is to be expected. And, we were just talking about healthcare, and, we have a socialist style healthcare system. And then when we start bringing in this amount of migrants or immigration into the country who want to take advantage of our social programs, it's ultimately going to lead to collapse, right? So, the quickest way to kill a country is to have A, open borders, and to have B, a welfare state. So that's exactly what they're doing. And then we're hearing, the replacement theory, which, I can agree with, but, I think it's more than that. The government says that we have to fear Russia, that we have to fear, climate change. But a lot of these, don't get me wrong, there's two types of immigrants, right? There are the people that want to come to Canada to improve their life, to provide for their family, and to be hard workers and be positive contributors to society. And then there's people that are coming in from war-torn countries, militants, fighting age, that are basically being, and you see them, demonstrations in Montreal not too long ago. These people are here for one reason, and that's like anarcho-tyranny. So, when you start bringing in, a lot of these people, you have to ask yourself, is the government building an army? And if they are building an army, who is this army going to be fighting? Is it going to be, your old stock Canadians? And, when they unleash this army, they're not going to be able to control them. So then you're going to have the full force of the authoritarian boot that's going to come from the state. And I think that's what their ultimate goal is to establish some sort of, martial law or police state, and use these migrants, these militant migrants, to achieve that agenda.
Well, I forgot to scroll down, and I realized that we have someone else to add to the panel. And I'm sure he's been waiting for a minute, and I'm going to get shit as soon as I pull him up. So without further ado, here's Marty up north. Thanks for joining us tonight.
This is how long I've been waiting. I'm halfway through
Oh, no. I knew I was going to get it. As soon as I scrolled down, and I'm like, oh, he is here. I was waiting for a message saying, like, dude, I can't get in or something like that.
No. It's all good. Hi, everyone. Hey, Odessa, we used to exchange the odd tweet, probably more in the COVID days. I've moved on to COVID, and I've moved on to other issues. And Kev, awesome to see you, man. I've never met you in person, but we've been on Spaces together.
Nice to see you, Marty.
Yeah, Wyatt, I think last time I saw you was in the bar. Was at the garage in Calgary before they demolished it.
Oh, no, I wasn't at that one. It was actually the previous one when Tucker Carlson was in town, because I was actually selling memberships before when the garage shut down. It's been so long since I saw you that you didn't have your beard at the time.
Well, that was only for about 2 months, man.
I know, but that was a small 2-month window a long time ago.
Yeah. Cool conversation. Hey, Kevin, I just want to say what you don't mind if I call you Kevin, or do you want to be called Gov? I don't know what you want to be called, but
whatever you feel comfortable with. You can call me Susan if it makes you happy.
Yeah. I heard your comment on the two types of immigrants, and I used to think that way, but now I'm kind of thinking there's actually only one kind of immigrant coming to Canada, because my ancestors that came here, 300-400 years ago, yes, they wanted to build a new life. And it was, in fact, that because, they were given the opportunity to get land and clear the land. They had the opportunity to build on their land, build a home, start a business, do things. I don't know why, like, if somebody's thinking, and immigrants who are coming here thinking they're going to build a new life, some of them are turning around and going right back because they're realizing you actually can't build a life in Canada anymore. We're past that. You can't buy a house, you can't start a business, you can't buy land, you almost can't do anything. So I'm starting to believe there's only one kind of immigrant now, and those are the ones who want to come here and escape their shithole and come here and take advantage of our
literally
situation
like
for a while.
It's literally like a modern form of slavery. Show up here and share half a basement suite with 4 other guys and all drive around for Uber Eats all day, and you don't have enough money to even buy a plane ticket home, so just basically sit around here and serve the people who've been here for a while. Like every immigrant, no matter what year it is, whether it's 1820 or it's now 2024, it's always self-interest that's the main guide of you. But you can't let in 2 million, 3 million people in just a 3-year space of time, because eventually the thing is the self-interest of moving to a country to better your life conflicts because everyone can't show up at the same time.
We're letting in way too many people as a percentage of the population, right? I mean, we went from 38 million people and let in 2 million people. The Americans are screaming that they have a border problem, and they're looking at us going, well, we had 11 million people cross our border, but we still handle them. They look at us and think we're completely nuts to let in 2 million.
With illegals, the thing is that ours are all legal, so we have to let them into the healthcare system. At least with illegals, you could say we have no responsibility for you.
Yeah.
You know that a part of our healthcare collapse is because we have so many immigrants that are filling up beds. I'm not saying human beings shouldn't be cared for when they're in need medically, but it's a mathematical problem. And in fact, it was about a year ago that a doctor who is working still said to my husband, we can't say this out loud, but the really bad flu season where a bunch of children had, I don't know if it was RSV or these flus, and they were talking about these deaths these children are having at Vancouver Hospital, at Children's Hospital. Everybody needs to jab up all their kids, not enough vaccines. She said it's actually 90% are the children that have just come here and they haven't developed immunity to all these bugs that we've built up. And that the majority of children passing away or with getting really sick are actually immigrant children who just got here in a whirlwind of a long trip. And
you bring up an interesting point there, about building up an immunity. And I wanted to pipe in when you guys were talking about immunity earlier, but let's move on. When we travel to other countries, we often get sick, right? And the same thing happens to other people who come to our country as tourists. Like, I used to find that weird. I thought we had such a nice, clean environment, but it has nothing to do with the cleanliness of the environment. It simply has to do with the environment and the bugs and the bacteria and the germs that are in our environment. So you think we're clean, and people come here from really dirty countries and get sick in our clean country. Yeah.
So I wanted to bring up this other point just real quick. This is a super chat from Penny D. Thank you so much for the $5. She says, I actually wondered about all the immigrants and government creating some kind of attack on us. And this has actually been a concern for the United States of America right now. It is as well. We have here, Trudeau had enabled a pathway for terrorists to enter our country. 484 apprehended at the Canadian border just last year. 82% of all individuals encountered on terrorist watch lists are now coming from Canada. Porous at every sector, it's just a matter of time. So yeah, the United States are really concerned about Canada as being a security risk for themselves at this point.
As they should be.
Yeah, I agree.
I was going to say, did you see the clip of Jagmeet Singh trying to blame Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives for the problem with the border?
No.
Oh, that's rich. No,
he said that the Conservatives, because they had not properly funded the border in 2015 dollars, that means that whatever the Liberals kept the funding at is not adequate enough.
Listen, Jagmeet Singh is a parody of himself. He's the biggest idiot on social. He actually has me blocked. But I can't stand the guy. Everything he says.
That happened today, didn't it? Or yesterday? You got blocked very recently, I think.
About a month ago, a month or so ago. And I didn't even know. I had him belled, right? So every time he posted, I would take his video and, comment on it and post his video. And then I just stopped getting his updates. And I went and checked, and I'm like, the guy blocked me. Like, what the hell, man? Yeah. So, but everything this guy says, he actually said not too long ago that he has lost confidence in Pierre Poilievre. Like, dude, What the hell does that even mean? You're propping up the Liberals. How can you lose confidence in a party that you don't even support, that you never had confidence in to begin with?
It is
You know,
so
confidence in the
easy.
opposition. I mean,
It is so easy to be a popular NDP leader because nobody ever thinks you're going to be in government. So everyone default just says, yeah, I guess the NDP leader is a good guy. Mulcair had a good approval rating. Leighton had a good approval rating. Jagmeet Singh had a good approval rating for like about 4 or 5 years. And then he wouldn't stop giving Justin Trudeau a back rub every single day. And people finally realized, oh, these people have never formed government, not just because, you know, they're a small party. It's because they're actually useless and they're actually just complete political hacks. So Jagmeet Singh has been falling apart. I'm waiting for him to cut a video blaming Pierre Poilievre for him not being at 40%.
we need to stop. We need to stop this concept of people on the left being like so full of heart, and they just care about everybody, and that's why they're doing what they're doing. It's really it's the ideology of envy. They're not doing what they do because they care about people. I mean, honestly, if you care about people, so you steal from others to create a more inefficient process in order to help a few, like that's not caring for anybody. That's actually the worst. It's a way worse prospect. You're just, you know, even if you're doing it out of the kindness of your own heart, people need to stop those people. You're the Lenny that wants to pet the rabbits, George. You're the Lenny that wants to pet the rabbits, and we need to stop you from petting the rabbits.
They're like, we want to let people smoke fentanyl in hospitals and let babies smell fentanyl and young mothers and old people because we don't want to hurt their feelings.
Yeah, it's brutal.
I think it comes down to the fact that they think that they're so good, that they think that they're so superior in their ideology and everything that they believe about the world is right, that they have the right to force their ideas onto other people. And that's what makes them dangerous.
Well, think about how easy it is to campaign as an NDP candidate. Oh, what do you want? Oh, we'll give all that to you. Also, that guy down the street who has a nicer car than you, has a nicer house, screw him. He should have to pay for it. Like it's the dumbest worldview possible. You should have good things, and people you don't like shouldn't have good things.
Wyatt, I attended. I fully agree. I attended the NDP leadership campaign events here in Calgary. You know, Nate Nenshi just won, but leading up to that, there was 3 campaign events. I went to the one in Lethbridge and the one in Calgary, and it was hilarious to see them on stage trying to one-up each other on like, oh, I'm going to give everybody unicorns. Oh, whoa, okay. Well, I'm going to give everybody 2 unicorns. Like they were, and I have it on video. I mean, they were one-upping each other on the craziest promises. So you're right. They don't think they're going to win, so they can promise anything.
I've always conceptualized the video idea of going to some federal NDP convention and like as I tour, just have like subtly North Korean music always playing in the background while I talk to people, just North Korean pop music. Also, I love DPRK pop music. Go look it up. It actually is like kind of amazing. I have a whole playlist on my phone.
Well, so many of them have me blocked. You know, you guys probably saw some of my tweets. I have this orange jacket, and I wore this orange jacket to the convention, and all these MLAs who have me blocked, who don't know who I am in real life, were walking up to me and shaking hands like we were buddy. It was hilarious. Like,
it's actually so funny how little of a public figure most NDP politicians are. It's union front groups and activist front groups that get them elected. But like the thing is that it's not like I'm not trying to praise any conservative MPs or MLAs, but usually they're like a community figure. NDP people, like that's why in 2014 when Rachel Notley became the leader, she won with 1,200 votes. It's because nobody really likes these people. They purely get in because they're the opposition to whoever the conservative is. But overall, like all these people are like university students. They're like some random person from some random activist group, like David Eby is in British Columbia. He just came from the Pivot Legal Society, which nobody's ever heard of in their entire lives.
Actually, in the 2015 rebound election, when the NDP did get elected in Alberta, they ended up with about a half a dozen MLAs who weren't even here on election night, who woke up from their drunken party, who came back from Florida to find out they had won. I mean, it was one of those weird instances.
Yeah, like
We just
two or
call-
three of them got kicked out because of all like the photos of them flipping off flags and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Can we just call them communists, because that's ultimately what they are? They're
No,
communists.
what they actually are. They legitimately are, and the BC NDP just announced a candidate who self-identified as this. They are what you call trade unionists, and if you translate trade unionism to French, it's syndicalism, and if you translate it to Italian, it was what you call fascism, because the Italians call their unions fascio back in the day, and that's why it's called fascism. So the BC NDP is openly running this lady named something Sooner or whatever in one of the Surrey ridings, Surrey Newton, I believe, who's actively in her bio calls herself a trade unionist. And it's not because she's confused. She's a lawyer. She knows what she's identifying as. She believes in union and government power teaming up to destroy the public sector.
Wow.
And that's another problem. And that's another problem that I have with the left, right? Or with anybody that's university educated. It seems to be a disease that you get when you spend too much time in university. You just turn retarded. They like to put fascism on the complete opposite side.
The millwright is laughing, or the mechanic's laughing at the engineer right now. No, I'm not retarded from my 4 years.
But they like to put academia. They like to put fascism on the complete opposite side of communism when they have a lot of
Isn't it hilarious?
commonalities.
We have Antifa people, anti-fascists, teaming up with trade unions to protest against fascism. What did they think the only thing that separates them from the Italian fascist party of the 20s and 30s is the fact that they believe in like internationalism. They're not ultra-nationalists, they're ultra-internationalists. That's the only thing that makes it. They're fascists who also hate their country.
The other thing that separates them from those fascists is the costumes. You got to give it to Benito Mussolini and some of the other ones. They had really awesome costumes.
Well, they could actually
wasn't
it
Hitler's army? They had Hugo Boss. That was like their
Hugo
whole
Boss.
thing.
Yeah.
To be fair, National Socialists are actually different from fascists. A lot of the terms, because
they're just more inclusive. They're just more inclusive. It's just a more inclusive type of fascism. At the end of the day, it's all collective authoritarianism. It's a collective.
Yeah, at the end of the day, that's
wants
how it
to
works.
use authoritarian ideology to force their views upon other people. That's all it is.
Every single one of these is just a flavor of socialism. Fascists are trade unionist socialists. Nazis are race socialists. And communists are class socialists, or Marxists are class socialists. It's all the same thing. It's all the government controls the economy based on different factors and metrics.
And I'm an Albertan, and we're just conservatives. And when I look across the border to my cousins on the west, I just like, you guys are all socialists of different flavors, like you just described. Which is why I'm so happy to see what's happening in BC right now. Finally, you guys are waking up.
Albertans are beef capitalists.
Yes. And actually, we have you can still go on the stock exchange and see the price of beef every day. Yeah. I don't know where else you can do that. And I talked about the price of beef last week.
Yeah, we're beef and oil capitalists, where all those people out in Ontario are corporate capitalists.
Yeah, beef's an all-time high right now.
I wanted to share this on the screen because this is what gets people confused. There's all these different like explainers of how political systems and all of that stuff work, but you really can sum it up and make it simple, and it really just lays out this way. You have the rule of law in the middle. You have authoritarianism all the way on the left, so 100% brutal force. Or the way the other way is anarchy, no rule, nothing, nobody over you, free will as much as you want to go. And just before that you have libertarianism, but communism, fascism, all of that stuff, all of authoritarianism is all way on the left side. It's all way on the left. They may say that those guys are super far right. It's like, no, you don't fit over here with us people who want freedom. You're talking about locking people up and doing all these things to limit people's freedom. So this is the political scale that I like to espouse to and show people, instead of talking about the convoluted scales that goes all over the place. Authoritarians all belong on that one side, on the left.
And the sad thing is that I think as a society in Canada, we're, we might have been a 6 or a 5 for most of our history, and somehow or other, we keep pushing into that 7, 8, and then some are pushing so far that they're making all of us on the other side look extreme. And it's disappointing. And the other thing I like to point out about that is you can live on one end, but you can't on the other. I mean, the libertarian side is possible. You can always survive in that environment, but the other totalitarian side is very scary. Like it's not a natural system. It's just not. That's my opinion.
Well, and I like to add this one. I say this one as like an ad, a thing that I say all the time. You in a free society, you can have your communist experiment. You can go off and build your little commune and all agree that you're all gonna get paid the same and all of that stuff, and watch it fall apart. Watch it fall apart, and then go home to mommy. You know what I mean? And everything outside is still, you're still in Kansas, Toto.
Yeah, in capitalist economies, like socialist experiments immediately fall apart because everyone won't do it. So you had to force people to do it. But in a socialist system, you immediately have a black market pop up because capitalism works no matter if everyone's agreeing to do it or not. It simply is natural.
And
it's a natural phenomenon. It just comes about.
It's just a giant pendulum that takes like 200-300 years and just repeats and repeats and repeats, and it swings from individual liberty to authoritarian collectivism. And we're basically moving to that 7, 8, 9, 10 scale, and then there's going to be a snapback, and there's going to be some sort of issue. Usually leads to mass casualties, loss of human life, and don't want to be a doom and gloomer, but if you take a look at every communist takeover, that's how it ends, with mass casualties, government taking no accountability, and then just the cycle repeats itself. Is that going to happen tomorrow? Obviously not, because it is a 200-300 year cycle, but it is going to play itself out. It always does.
Well, let's hope it doesn't happen on our watch.
Well, it is happening. It is happening because we've just got tent cities growing and growing and growing and growing, and we've got 8-hour lineups in emergency. I mean, the mass casualties are started already. They're just not shooting people on the street yet.
Yeah, and a lot of the immigration stuff is exacerbating this. And I have a super chat from Matro for $13.99. He says, when other minorities are sick of mass immigration, you have a serious problem. I mean, you could break it down to minorities or whatever, but yeah, absolutely. Like, I know for a fact the Indo-Canadian community is really upset with what Trudeau.
Oh, we just lost Clyde for a second.
Yeah, Marty's now taking control. It's his show.
Yeah, he's gone for about 12 seconds every 20 minutes. We do this every week. Elon, we need more satellites, dude. More satellites.
I'm shocked about how bad the
satellite. It's what it is.
Okay, there we
go. So what are you saying? What?
Yeah.
You're shocked
I was
about
saying.
What?
Oh yeah.
No, you're good.
Go ahead.
Glad. Take control.
Oh, okay. So I was going to say, the whole immigration thing. The Indo community has really been up in arms about what Trudeau's government's been doing. Darshan Maharaja, he's been on the show several times. I should bring him on for one of these panels as well. I'd like to do more of these panels. These are great. So, and thanks guys for coming out for this. But yeah, this has become a big issue, and it's not just an issue for what people call old stock Canadians. Everybody is upset about this. Everybody is feeling the effects of this. Everybody's feeling the burn and wants it to end.
Well, and you were talking earlier, I can't remember exactly the context, but we were giving a little bit of statistics on immigration. It is simply statistically too high right now. I talk about this all the time. I mean, the record housing unit starts that we've ever created as a country in Canada is about 250,000. We've hit that peak like several times. We did it for a short period in the 1980s, 1990s. And so when we're really ticking, we can build 250,000 housing units in a year. And if a housing unit holds 2 to 3 people, let's say, we can accommodate 700,000 people in a year. We're letting in 1 million and a bit. Like it's just math. It's just math, folks. Like it's nothing else. It's just math. And these people are going to end up on floors and tents and And then people are saying, what, well, we should be welcoming. We are welcoming. I mean, let's make no mistake. We're a nation built. I think 40%, 27% of people currently living in Canada were not born here. So let's face it, we are a nation of immigrants. But now, and people are seeking a better life. That's a great reason to come here. But if them coming here makes the people who've already been here a while start to suffer, then to me, that's unacceptable. So
Trudeau said that he's going to build 4 or 5 million houses or whatever, right? But they also
shake a stick at it, right?
They also changed the definition of a vaccine. So they're just going to change the definition of a house to a tent. So here's your tent, here's your heat pump. Vote Liberal. Everybody can live in this beautiful socialist utopia where you can shoot meth and get high all day, and everybody votes.
Kevin, are you in La Belle Province? Is that where you live?
I do. I live about an hour east of Montreal.
An hour east of Montreal. How's the immigration in your neck of the woods? I imagine it's pretty high.
Well, I live on a dirt road, and there's like 400 people in my town. So.
Okay.
I was saying before that, like, Canada is only now talking about it because the French are upset because there's so many immigrants in Quebec now, and and we can.
Well, and I actually tweeted about this the other day, and I tweeted something that I thought was going to be unpopular, and it turned out to be actually a popular tweet. And basically, what I was saying is that Alberta is because we're facing huge immigration, and so is BC, and so is Quebec and Ontario. But I said, immigration is not our jurisdiction, but we can make it unwelcoming to immigrants. And I thought, people are probably going to get upset about that, but they weren't. And then I cited examples. Quebec actually does technically make itself unwelcoming to some immigrants, right? By, for instance, imposing language laws and saying you have to be proficient in French, as an example. And so, but anyways, short story, my tweet resonated. People are like, oh yeah, do whatever we need to do to make it unappealing to come to Alberta. So people are fed up, and that poll you posted, I think that's a real sentiment. Canadians are fed up with the high level of immigration right now.
And that's a very interesting point. You talk about the language laws. I think I forget, Bill 94 or whatever it is, where you have to talk to people in French over English in Quebec. So I was watching a CPAC video today, and they're threatening another referendum in Quebec if Trudeau doesn't come in and stop these bills that are attacking Anglophones in Quebec. So if they're threatening referendum, being in Quebec, I would say, hey, you know what? Why doesn't Quebec leave Confederation and actually set the groundwork for other provinces to do so? Because once it sets precedents,
please go.
Once it sets precedents, and the gentleman who was talking about the language laws, he said the only time Quebec cares about equality is when they're getting equalization payments from Western provinces, and other than that, they don't care. They're gonna crap all over the Anglophones, which they do. I've had my car vandalized. I've had my because I have Ontario license plates. I did live in Ontario for a while. Have Ontario license plates. I go to the store, someone will kick my car or scratch my car just because it's an Ontario license plate. So I felt the discrimination as an Anglophone in Quebec. I can speak a little bit of French, but I'm definitely not good at it. So hey,
don't feel bad. British Columbians do the same thing to my truck when I go visit there. So
let Quebec. Let Quebec.
Oh man, we have during COVID especially. We had to hide our license plates, man. You parked out of sight when I went to BC during COVID. You guys did not like us.
Are you sure you just didn't not notice crashing because there's curves in the road?
No. He's right. During COVID, there was the lefties were getting angry that people from Alberta were coming here. And it's true. We know people that had their cars vandalized. Stay home. You're spreading the virus. Get back to Alberta. He's not lying.
And you guys had travel restrictions. You had east-west corridors, but you couldn't go north-south, whereas we could travel freely. Dude, I did a long trip all the way to Prince Rupert, and all the way to Prince Rupert, we kept an eye on our truck, man. We just lost Odessa.
It's because you didn't put a mask on your license plate. If you had a mask on your license plate, it would have been fine. Because masks saves lives.
Did we lose Odessa, or I can't see her anymore? But can you see her? Or
yeah, no, she's dropped. She's buffering. If she doesn't come back,
she'll figure it out.
she
She'll
comes
drop
back.
out of the room, and yeah.
Yeah, I had no idea that there was that kind of prejudice against Albertans. I guess in Vancouver proper, right? So like only in the lefty areas.
I was gonna mention too when it comes to the.
I mean, I was joking about your driving because you drive straight all the time, and we have curves.
I was gonna mention on the immigration stuff earlier that one of the big things I've noticed since I've been in British Columbia, and we've had multiple instances where we were talking to a lot of South Asian voters, especially Gadwaras. You get tons of South Asian sort of, elders in the community saying that we don't want all these people showing up to the province who aren't wanting to work, who are basically saying, hey, I'm your distant relative, give me a place to stay. They're annoyed by it, and they very much don't see these people as part of their community. They see them as people who are trying to interlope into it. So the thing is that people sometimes falsely see the South Asian community as an immigrant community. Like, no. 80% of it are Canadians, and they're seeing the new people who've just come over here in the past few years as people now trying to take advantage of the South Asian card that they do not respect. They're Canadians first, and they don't want some random people who moved here from Punjab 2 years ago to basically demand special benefits because of it.
I'm gonna have to get a new camera, Clyde. I'm flickering again, right? I got it fixed. Everything's getting old. My joints are getting old. My body's getting old. My camera's getting old. I need new stuff.
You can replace your camera. I don't know what you're gonna do about getting old yourself.
What's that? What?
His video is glitching out in such a way it looks like it's the setup to like a horror movie where he's going to be the first one to die in the live stream.
I am, or Clyde is.
Well, Odessa,
I forgot her name. The lady who got cut out first. She's the first victim. Then it's going to be Clyde next because it's showing that it's telegraphing that he's the one in danger next.
Jeez. I'm buffering quite a bit. We got a super chat from G Meister. We got a super chat from G Meister for $10. He says, "Did anyone notice that Trudeau is once again matching donations only for the Jasper fire victims? This is the second time he's done that. Where are carbon tax dollars?" And that's a really good question. And I was really pissed off when he did this the first time when that hurricane hit Nova Scotia and devastated a bunch of people's houses and a lot of people, flooding and power out and all that stuff. And he came on television after giving money to Ukraine and giving money to all these other things, foreign countries. He comes in and he says, if any Canadian wants to donate money, we're willing to match your donations to help out Canadians.
When he says we're willing, does he mean he himself personally out of his bank account that increased 20 times over the last 10 years, or is it talking about stealing more money from Canadians?
He puts conditions like that on everything. I mean, he did a commercial this week where he's walking around, I don't know, Kitchener-Waterloo, and he's like, we'll give money to the communities as long as they build housing next to whatever. There's always a condition. I tell you what, Trudeau better not come to. He's not what he doesn't set. He didn't come during Stampede. His welcoming. Nobody has any appetite for him. Nobody wants to see Trudeau in Alberta. If he came here as a result of the Jasper fires, or if Guilbeault, there'll be riots. There's not enough security to protect that guy. He's absolutely 100% hated.
Well,
and
apparently it's very, very bad if you interrupt Justin Trudeau's vacation for any reason, even if it's Kean Bexty asking questions for 9 minutes. That is an actual violation against human rights to cut into his vacation for 9 minutes out of the 45 days he usually takes in a year.
Yeah, you and me, Clyde, will talk on Wednesday. We'll have we can almost do an episode dedicated to Jasper and what happened there. It's just a fiasco and a disaster, and it was totally preventable. It's sickening, really, is what it is.
An MP 4 or 5 years ago called out the government, saying that they weren't doing proper force management in the area. Though the Western Standard posted the clip to YouTube.
I called him out in every video. I hike in Jasper. It's my backyard. Every video I've ever hiked in Jasper, I pause and I turn the camera and point at something and say, "This is unsustainable. This is going to burn."
Apparently, climate change makes bureaucrats' minds not work properly, because it doesn't matter. Even if we believed the climate change kind of hysteria that many liberals do, How
Yeah.
does it stop you from having proper forest management, from cutting channels through the forests, so that when there is a major forest fire, you have a major buffer between Jasper and the rest of the wilderness?
Yeah. Just
Well,
curious,
it's not
Kevin,
just
how
that,
is
it's
how,
fuel loads.
Yeah.
There's a lot of issues that they're
How-
just
how's
not
the-
taken care of.
how's the Jasper story in the news in your neck of the woods there, Kevin? Do you guys talk? Do you hear it? Does it make the news or?
Well, I don't really watch the news, so all of the news that I get is off of X and your guys's posts and whatnot. I saw your post that went viral about the Jasper Lodge burning. Marty, good job on that. I think that was very successful. But one of the things that I asked myself, so the government says that we have to pay, like this is going back to the carbon tax, question. The government says that we have to pay a carbon tax to stop the planet from burning. We've all seen the videos of Mark Holland and every other liberal nut in the House of Commons screaming about, planet burning. Meanwhile, they don't take that money to reinvest into forest management, like Wyatt said, or to invest into fire prevention, like water bombers. So it seems to be that they want to actually create or have more of these fires just so that they can blame climate change to justify an increase in the carbon tax, to say that the carbon tax is saving the planet. It's like a vicious cycle.
They can't use monies collected from the carbon tax to do any of those things, like buying water bombers, because the money collected from the carbon tax, we all get more of it back than what we gave. So it's a deficit for the government. I mean, that's a perfect example. There hasn't been an investment in anything to prevent forest fires or fight forest fires. I
always want to ask.
Well, I would actually like to add to this, because for about 100 years, actually, on the west coast of North America, not this isn't just British Columbia, it's not just Canada. This is in the United States as well, on the northwest. There was a big fire about 100 years ago that it was devastating. It killed a bunch of people, and it was pretty bad. And ever since then, they put out this policy of fire suppression. Just suppress fires anywhere you see them, put them out. You got Smokey the Bear, you see a forest fire, you put it out. That whole thing led to the biggest boon of forest overgrowth and tons of fuel load in all of these fires. And now for several decades, there's been warnings about this. It's not news. This is olds. This is stuff that we've known about. Patrick Moore has been talking about this for a few decades at least, where he's been saying that because of the tremendous low fuel loads that are in these forests, and we're doing nothing responsible, we have technology to do it with logging, with other things, to clear these areas, to get these fuel loads out so that we don't have crown fires. Now, for people who don't know what the difference between these different types of fires are, crown fires are the worst. You can have brush fires, you can have fires that are manageable, and even controlled fires, controlled burns, that kind of thing. As soon as you have a crown fire, it means there's too much fuel load that it goes right up into the canopy and it takes out everything. And it's usually like five kilometers, these crown fires, they go across. And it's scorched earth, meaning it even kills the enzymes in the soil. So you're not going to be growing forest there for a minimum 30 years. And it's devastating. And we know this, and it's not news, but because of this whole narrative, they just don't want to talk about this. No. Climate change.
Well, you and I have talked about this a bunch of times, Clyde. It's the environmentalists have been their own worst enemy with this whole romantic notion of old growth forests. An old growth forest in British Columbia is 500, 600 years old, because you guys got trees that live 500-600 years. In Alberta, an old growth forest is one where the trees are 75 to 100 years old, and then they start dying off. And that's all of Jasper. That's all of the national parks. It's just old growth forest that, if you want to let it burn, that's fine. Mother Nature will take its course, but don't be surprised if there's a building in the way, it's going to get burned, So, and by the way, the crown on this one, like, the speed was ridiculous. ridiculous, right? I've been near fires. I've actually been in Jasper when there's a fire over the horizon. You go, oh shit, I got to kind of outrun this sucker. This one was moving at 5 kilometers an hour. I hike at 4 kilometers an hour. So you'd be like, it was moving fast. They
were giving reports of 15 meters a minute and about 300 feet high in the air, a flame.
Yeah.
That sounds insane.
It's terrifying. Why, you had something you wanted to say? I'm sorry, we all cut you off.
I was going to say to environmentalists, it doesn't even matter if a forest has been up there for 5 or 10 years. They're purely unreasonable. They see everything as a redwood. Everything is just a redwood that you must preserve. And this is why the funny thing is, in all the bluest states in the United States, that's where you get the biggest forest fires, even though there are a lot of states with tons and tons of old growth trees. But it's California that has the biggest fires in the entire country. And it's because it has a Democratic government who thinks that even letting someone cut down any tree for commercial reasons is a crime against Fern Gully, and we can't let them in. And that's really the big issue, is that we need like the thing is that's the funny thing. Capitalism and environmentalism actually could be two great forces to come together. Because if you let people strategically cut down trees for commercial reasons, you can protect the population centers while they actually are able to profit. Plus, logging companies tend to replant trees in the aftermath because it's a terrible business model for them to pay for this tract of land.
Yeah, it's a great.
You can recut it down in 20 years.
Yeah, it's a great renewable resource. I mean, properly, and we used to manage it properly. I mean, you manage it properly, people make money, the trees grow, the animals are happy, the park looks gorgeous. It's a win-win-win all around. But yeah, you're right. The environmentalists are, and others, people with, I mean, like in the case of Jasper, it also, like, you look at the Jasper website and there's a ton of garbage policies on there. There's literally like trans policies. I'm like, what the frick does like Jasper National Park need anything to do with a trans policy? Okay, they lost their way.
If you misgender a tree, it might catch fire.
Yeah. Speaking of trans,
this is a thing that's great that comes out of the libertarian camp. I think Dr. Walter Block is one of my favorite for this. From the Mises School of Economics, and he talks about the libertarian answer to environmental issues and why property ownership is the better way of going about it than having things in the commons. As soon as you have something that's government property or whatever managed by government, there's no equity in it and there's no reason to preserve it, because if say for example, instead of in Canada us leasing out plots for people to do logging as we do now, the crown, the crown land where they can go in and they can lease areas. What if those logging outfits owned a mountain or a side of a mountain, owned this property? They would have more of an incentive to make sure that the property is maintained. They want to harvest this, generation after generation. It's a long-term investment. This is not the kind of thing that you would come in and just like tear everything down as the left would like to say that people do. But this is what happens in an environment where the government owns something and you have this problem of the commons that's been well established, that when something's free, everybody piles in there to take everything out of it, all of the resources, drain it completely dry instead of leaving something to be replenished and building equity within that. It's great. It's a great concept.
That's actually kind of how it was in Alberta for the longest time. I mean, the big forest companies, the Weyerhaeusers and the Georgia Pacifics had what we called forest management areas, and they had instead of the surface mineral rights, they had the surface tree rights, and they managed it as exactly like you said. But then everybody else who had no knowledge of this got involved in it, and then we've digressed. I mean, they're like, we've built towns in the middle of the forest in this country, in your province, in my province, in Saskatchewan, for 100 years, and we didn't burn them down every 15 years. Like, this is not rocket science, but suddenly we're misguided. It's unfortunate. It's going to be an awakening. I hope this one's an awakening. I hope. It's going to be an awakening because Ottawa can't point the finger at anybody else. This is their land. This is, Jasper is a national park, and they tried this week hard to say it was Danielle's fault and this and that. It's like, sorry, folks. this is national park, man. It might as well be another planet.
Even if they manage to say it's, a provincial issue, because I heard a lot of people saying that, take a look at housing. Oh, we're in a housing crisis. It's a provincial issue. We have to step in. Oh, we're in a healthcare crisis. It's a provincial issue. We have to step in. Oh, wildfires. That's a provincial issue. That's your job. That's Daniel Smith's job. Conservatives hate the climate. So, their arguments are not even, on point. They're just talking points. They're not intellectually honest in their arguments, because they just sway in the wind to, promise the world, deliver nothing, and blame someone else. That's the liberal motto.
Interesting.
Absolutely. I got a couple of super chats I want to get to. Penny D with the $5 super chat says, "You're not getting older, Marty. You're getting better."
Thank you.
Just make you feel better about that one.
It does.
G Meister with the $10 super chat says, "I'm confused. Just runaway Trudeau is just sending our military to Jasper to help fight the fires. However, the town has been evacuated. So where is the military going to buy their equipment?"
Those poor military guys. I know lots of military guys. This is one of the tasks that they absolutely hate. Being brought in to fight fires or fill sandbags. They don't have equipment, and all the equipment is already being used. So they're being sent there. It's a gesture, and they'll be put on some, they'll help with some of the logistics. I mean, they'll have equipment. Somebody will say, "Can you move the pump from here to there?" And they'll put them on shovels, and they can use the equipment to demolish trees, do stuff. But fundamentally, it's too late at this point. In fact, it's been raining. Thankfully, it's been raining. So the problem, Mother Nature is going to take care of the problem.
Well, the federal government
here
needs
in
to feel like
BC.
they were being
Holy cow.
helpful in some way.
Yeah.
So climate change is going to battle climate change, and climate change is going to win.
Well, the
I
climate's
love
been
all the
changing.
climate-
It changed this morning. It was single digits outside. I had to,
Here,
I had to put the
I'd
heat
love-
on in the
I'd
car
love
to
for
go
the
to work.
Climate change people to tell me why in 1825 did 1/6 of all the land mass in New Brunswick burn to the ground. 1/6 of the province's area burned in a forest fire in that year. And I'm pretty sure there was no smokestacks anywhere in North America.
It's because of the internal combustion engine.
Yeah.
That's the answer to everything.
Henry Ford went back into time to burn down the fourth of New Brunswick.
Their ideas
That's
are
not
internally
even son of a
combusting
gun.
as we speak.
And
Al
the
Stewart
thing-
with a $10 super chat says, "Being too efficient at suppressing and eliminating fires from the landscapes is only one part of the equation. Even age single species plantations have created more intense fires here in BC."
Yeah. Yeah, you guys have a great movement in BC. You have a group called Stop Spraying, which is, Stevens' name, and they promote that. I mean, we're terrible at a well-diversified forest. From the air, you'll see the poplars and the aspen and the spruce and the pine, and it shouldn't be as homogeneous as it is. I mean, the fire in Fort McMurray could have been worse, and what saved it was this big grove of aspen along the river. And that's another example. There's no aspen anymore, or poplar as people call it. There's no poplar in Jasper, none whatsoever, because they let the elk come into town, and the elk just eat the aspen. So, and that, again, that's a balance. Like, everybody loves the elk. They're sitting right there at the golf course, but guess what? The elk are also eating anything that could save the town. So yeah, good point.
I didn't even know that was a thing. We got another one from Al Stewart for $10. He says, "Uneven aged mixed species forests are more resilient to fires, at least in large part of the BC landscape." And that's very true. I was talking to Simon Hergott. He was going to try to introduce me to some of the people that are doing that campaign to stop the spray in British Columbia and stop basically killing off deciduous trees.
Deciduous trees. The logging companies love the logging companies love the spruce, the pine, the fir, and so when they harvest, they kill all of that, and then they go one step further. They spray in herbicides, and they kill the deciduous, the little poplars and the willows that come up. I mean, I show this as a video on my own property, because where I lived, the owner before me had cleared the land, and then he was trying to grow it as grass. And I hate grass. So over time, I stopped mowing, and I show that to people. The species that reappear quickly, the first one, the wild rose, then the willows, then the silver willow, then the poplars. And then you see these little spruces pop in, and then it's a race to the sun. And at some point, the spruce wins the race to the sun. They get so tall, and then they block everything underneath. Everything underneath dies, and then the spruce dies, and then the cycle repeats. And then I'll say one other thing about poplars. The other beauty of poplars and aspens, the deciduous trees, they lose their leaves in winter, right? Which means that the snow that's falling has a better chance of accumulating on the ground. People go, well, what do you mean? All the snow is still going to accumulate? It's like, no, it's not. If there's a high canopy of spruce trees that don't lose their needles, the clouds will sort of go over that, and the snow will not deposit there. It'll deposit further. So then underneath a strong spruce forest, there's no water, there's no soil. So then in the spring, everybody's like, well, we're in the spring. Why is it so dry? It's like, because none of the snow accumulated on the ground. So there's all these really complex things. And I love watching city slickers right now, telling us that it's our fault and we should do a better job of managing, and they all have an opinion. Like, come on, folks. Forests are very complicated. Yeah.
Well, I think it's, I'll pop this up because this was petrified COVID parent on X today saying, I really hope nobody sees this Jasper forest management plan from 2022 approved by Minister Guilbeault. If people learned this fire was caused by government mismanagement, it could really put a dent in the climate change narrative. And their forest management program was approved by him.
I shared that broadly, and whoever that guy is, petrified COVID parent, like I've followed him for 3-4 years, man. That guy's brilliant. He should have an audience like 10 times larger than what he's got. He's
Well, maybe we can bring him in one night. Bring him in for one of these panels. That'd be great.
72,000. I mean, that's a good audience for Canadian content, but he should. I seriously think he should have more. So.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, now who did we lose?
Wyatt.
No, I think he did that on purpose, or what's he trying to do? He must have gotten up to go get a. What happens if you leave the studio in this software? You can come back in, right? Yeah.
Yeah, as long as you got the link, you can come back in.
Yeah, we're gonna have some interesting stuff to talk about on our show this week, Clyde. I mean, let's not spoil it right now, but the Olympics are just kicking off. You and I joked, I barely knew there was going to be Olympics, and then
that crap.
No, I don't watch that crap, but I mean, it's making the news, man. The opening ceremonies of the Olympics were like, like it was demonic ritual. I mean, it's just
really
gross.
So I posted a tweet, Marty, about the decapitation of what's her face? The Let Them Eat Cake. Her name is
Marie Antoinette or whatever.
Thank you. So I posted that, and it was flying, but I got hit with a copyright infringement, and they stripped my video and deleted my tweet and said if I continue doing that I'm going to have my account suspended. I lost that tweet. But all I did is I went into the IOC, right? The Olympic committee took their video and posted it as my own and say, look at this. What do you think? It looks like, we've seen in the past these opening ceremonies seem to predict things, like during the London one where they predicted a healthcare crisis. Now they're seeing decapitation of of royalty. Like, what are your thoughts? That's all I asked.
The London Olympics, are those the ones where they had those big giant balloons that today in hindsight look like COVID viruses? Like that was foreshadowing. That was crazy.
And they had healthcare beds and nurses and people laying in beds. And so 3 or 4 hours later, it had over 100,000 views already. And then
Are you looking up quickly, Clyde, some of the highlight, or is that what you're doing? Or like it was disgusting, man. I mean, they reenacted Leonardo's Last Supper.
I wish you caught me doing that.
Yeah. I'm not sure if they were actually
you caught me texting the wife for another beer.
Oh, well, then text mine for another beer too, Karen.
I don't think they were exactly trying to recreate the Last Supper, but the whole point was that they're along a long table. But regardless, it's just gross.
Yeah.
Why is it that hyper progressive. And this is not all people who live in more urban downtown core areas, but like all of this is pitched to please like 7%, 5% of the population. Who cares about this? How many of us go to drag bars who want drag queens strewn over everything? You know what I mean? Like, you'd have way more justification to do literally any other theme but that. Like, there is no people who are interested in this. It's weird, but for some reason, and this shows you the bubble that so many elite people live in, that doing drag queen stuff is considered mainstream. But the thing is, because these people don't talk to anybody who, even in France, even in Paris, nobody's asking for this. It's like tiny portions of the population, especially not the minority community. They're not asking for this.
Well,
I mean, what's the viewership of the Olympics like anymore? I mean, is there much of a viewership at all?
It dropped after what were the? See, I don't even remember the last ones. Were the last ones in Tokyo or whatever? The ones during COVID. I mean, it dropped during COVID.
London.
No, I think there was one after that.
There was one in Tokyo.
I legitimately think Vancouver was like one of the last ones that people really watched the events. And it's because everything became very political. The events aren't even the main focus. It's like interviewing people about their oppressed childhood or whatever. Like, the thing is, I remember when you used to be able to just switch on the TV and you would just watch
There was
events
one in China too.
Yeah, 2008.
Right, Beijing. There was one in Beijing. But you know, like, I mean, when I think of the Olympics, I think of the other sport in that category is the World Cup, for instance. And any city hosting the World Cup would not do what Paris did yesterday. There's no way, because what Paris did yesterday would offend pretty much any South American nation. It'll offend. It would even offend the Islamic nations. I mean, what Paris did yesterday was offensive on the highest of levels, I think. But
I need to see this now.
But again,
I think the last Olympics I
watch events. It's hard to find events these days because it's not about. It's like all interviews and it's like just nonsense. I remember it was actually very easy to follow the Vancouver Winter Olympics. Ever since then, I've not been able to follow an Olympics very well because all the events are on different TV stations and they fill their time with sit-down interviews with random athletes to talk about how intersectional they are or whatever.
And it's all behind paywalls nowadays too. I mean, everybody's trying to make a dime off of everything. So, yeah.
The last Olympics I watched was in Atlanta, 1996.
1996.
I was like 12, 13 years old. Haven't watched the Olympics since. That's the video. That's the video that got stripped.
Like, dude, look at that. Like, yeah, we're like, what is that? Like, and look at the one in the bottom right. Like, the one in the bottom right. I mean, sure, it might not be trying to be a recreation of the Last Supper, but boy, it sure looks like it.
What I would say too is I would just put it mildly to say it's theater kid losers, and this is why you don't let theater kids run anything, because they're losers. Everything here is just loserish, abstract nonsense.
Yeah. And
trying to be deep when it's just garbage. It's just, wow, well, the person's holding their own head and it's kind of like Marie Antoinette. Who gives a crap? What? I'm not going to watch
and then people online were actually doing sort of comparisons of these Olympics with, we mentioned the ones in China, Beijing, where like Beijing put on like this crazy show of like power almost, and creative artistic stuff, like, you know, like Beijing puts like 1,000 drummers drumming away in perfect synchrony.
It was a celebration of Chinese culture, despite the fact that the communists tried to destroy Chinese culture as much as possible in the previous decade or the previous few decades. But in like France, what is this? How is this French in any way, shape, or form? I'm not French, but I feel bad that the French people basically said, we're hosting the Olympics. Also, screw you if you do anything that feels...
Well, this could be France. I mean, I haven't been to France in a decade. Maybe this is what France looks like nowadays. I mean, it's, you know, if it's a reflection of the country, then so be it. Yeah. Need a washroom break. Oh, I'm reading somebody else's. Karen! Hang on, I'm gonna leave for a second. Nobody's gonna serve me. I'll be right back, gentlemen. I'll put myself on mute.
Yeah, I'm in the most cramped studio. I'm in like the most cramped studio suite right now in Abbotsford. Not that cramped. I'm like 450 square meters right now.
One of the things, Clyde, that I definitely wanted to talk about, if you're okay with it, is the Canadian economy, the real estate market, anything along those lines.
Oh, absolutely. Sorry, I was just focusing on. Is that Peter going? What the heck am I looking at?
It's ludicrous. The Olympics are just fake and gay. I'm sorry, they're all just fake and gay.
It's terrible. I've always liked that bit out of that. But yeah, let's talk about the Canadian economy. Absolutely. Before we get into that, I just wanted to put it this: Jilly Beans for the $2 super chat says, "Life will find a way." Ian Malcolm. Yes, life will find a way. Absolutely. Cheers, Marty. I'm
drinking my son's beer. My 3 sons are visiting this weekend. I think you're moving this weekend, Clyde, but my daughter's moving. All the condo renovations. The culmination is tomorrow. We're moving my daughter in, and her 3 brothers are here to help. So,
does Alberta have the same thing as Quebec, where everybody moves on the same day?
No. We're free to move whenever we want. And what Kevin's referring to is in Quebec, the leases are all July 1st to July 1st. They all renew on the same date. So trying to rent the U-Haul on that weekend is just nightmarish.
That sounds like a terrible system, but whatever.
It is a terrible system.
But you have people visiting and you buy them Corona like they're peasants.
No, I didn't visit. They're visiting me and they brought me this. So okay. I don't care. If my son's buying me a beer, I'm like, I score victory. I'm
fair
happy.
enough. I will drink the cheapest crap I can find. I like cheap stuff and nice stuff all the same.
Is Johnny Walker okay?
I'm a Scotch drinker. When I drink Johnny Walker, I don't mind it, but Johnny Walker reminds me of my father. My father was a big Johnny Walker drinker. Actually, when my dad passed away, I kept a bottle of Johnny Walker that he had brought over to the house, and it took me years to finally drink it. And just in Dad's memory. Yeah.
So we got this answer earlier from Wyatt, but Trish Prue is asking on the super chat for $2. Wyatt, did you end up helping out in Abbotsford?
I am currently in Abbotsford. I actually had somebody who watches the show notice me at a Save on Foods yesterday. Or no frills yesterday. So yeah, we just went out door knocking today. We're doing a lot of events. It's going to be good. We're going to try and win the entire Fraser Valley, keep it all blue. It's been good. I was gonna follow up on Marty's thing about more of an alcoholic topic. I used to work at a liquor store for 5 years straight, and the one thing I, for some reason, got into collecting as I'm a big absinthe collector. I have like 6-7 bottles of absinthe I've collected from different parts of the world. Swiss, BC, Montana, Alberta, all those things.
Really?
Absinthe?
Yeah. People should try it, actually.
Is that like that's the weird orange licorice flavored drink?
With wormwood in it? Or the psychedelic?
No, it's not. It's not. You'd have to drink so much of it you'd die for it to actually make you hallucinate. What it basically is like hyper concentrated green tea, in the sense that it makes you extremely awake, and you actually water it down a lot. So you put like 1.5 ounces into like a giant glass, and it becomes very cloudy. But it's sort of licoricey. It's like aniseed.
What's the name of it?
Ritual?
What's a brand? Give me a brand that I might recognize.
A good brand is of course, Luxardo and those ones are the ones that are first coming to mind, but they're terrible.
I'm not going to recognize anything like that. Yeah, that's okay. If I walk into my local liquor store here in Redneck, Alberta, and I ask for any of those things, they're going to look at me and go,
but there's like paraphernalia involved with it.
Yeah.
So there's a whole process.
You put the sugar cube on
it's
top.
It's like cooking crack.
Yeah.
You got spoons and you got sugar, you got fire, you got all this stuff going on. And what do you caramelize the sugar and then you melt it?
That's a Czechoslovakian thing where you light the sugar cube on fire, but it literally does absolutely nothing. Also, Czech absinthe is usually bad quality. It's all blue, and it doesn't like when you add water to it, it doesn't get cloudy because there's not a lot of plant parts in it like you should have.
My wife watches a lot of foreign Netflix series, and I think that might be one of the drinks that she's been curious about trying. I think she'll watch like whatever Croatian series, and in Arab series and Israeli series, and she's always on my case about that. I'm like, honey, I like beer. That's it. I like beer and rye.
Yeah.
And
Al
I drank
Stewart
whis-
with a super
Yeah.
chat says, "When I drink whiskey, everyone turns into an asshole." Yeah, I always had that phrase, like when everybody's an asshole, maybe it's not everybody, maybe it's not
Yeah.
them.
This is my favorite whiskey right here.
Oh yeah. Well, you got good taste.
Oh, McLaren.
And money. Yeah.
Sounds great. I like that.
Oh, it's
I really
beautiful.
like, what is it called? I think it's like Stone Mill or something like that. There's this Dutch whiskey that's effectively like Dutch Scotch. It's Millstone. That stuff's really good. It's like a hyper iley Scotch, like Scotch, where it's like super hyper smoky, but it's drinkably so, where it doesn't like punch you in the throat or anything. So it's like a double the intensity of an iley. At the same time, it's very approachable.
If you like beer, Marty, and you like Scotch, have you ever had Innocent Gun?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I got a neighbor
Beautiful.
who brings it over whenever he's drinking. That's his favorite.
Beautiful beer. Beautiful
Yeah.
beer.
Yeah.
I don't know. It tastes like hangover to me. It just,
Well, I mean, I don't know. If
you know that
this.
next day when you still got whiskey on your breath and you're like, I need a hair of the dog. It's
Yeah.
a camping trip, and that's what Innocent Gun is for me.
Yeah, no, me and Kevin are just texting on the side there. I lived in Quebec for about, I lived there as a kid, and then I worked there for about 3 years as an adult. I worked there from 2016 to 1916. From 2016 to 2018, I worked in Quebec City. And
Well, you've been around a while, Marty.
yeah,
Oh.
I'm on my third tour.
Was Biden.
Yeah, a lot of good beers in Quebec, a lot of good microbreweries, a lot of good beers in Quebec. Yeah, and wines.
Well, that's happening out here in British Columbia. We got microbreweries coming out all over the place. I guess it was a weird fad. Like, so it started off with U-Brews. There was all these places where you could go and brew it was like a facility where you could brew your own stuff. And then some clever entrepreneurs came up with this great model where they'll take care of all the stuff, but the only thing that you legally had to do is take the yeast and put it in, because that's making alcohol. So they would provide the service. They would take care of all. Here's our recipe. Here's what we'll make. We'll do it all. You just have to come down and drop the thing in the barrel, and then we'll do the rest of it. And it was like way cheaper than buying like nice beer at the liquor store. And then I don't know what happened legally, but there was like some changes, and all of those U-Brew guys turned into the craft brewery guys. So they were able to make their own beers and then sell it, and then sell it into the liquor stores.
What happened is that the government lost revenue one way or another, and the government can't handle not having revenue, so they closed the market. Yeah, that's all.
Did you hear about what happened with the LCBO 2 days ago? Some of the largest alcohol producers in the world are now suing the LCBO for their unfair practices of jacking up prices and forcing distributors to increase their costs, their prices to an unfair amount, because the LCBO is the largest liquor importer in the world. So they import more liquor than any other jurisdiction. And so the distributors are now suing the LCBO for having this monopoly and making this unfair business practice that is forcing them to charge forcing them to pay more for their stuff.
That's interesting. Yeah, so they're one of the last government-owned alcohol retailers on the planet, basically. I mean, you won't find the concept of an LCBO or something similar in the U.S. That doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist.
You guys still have it in BC? Do you still have a BC liquor stores?
Board. We have a BC liquor board. It's a crown corporation.
We
Well,
don't.
like, you guys getting some
they're not
more
the only
private
player
retailers
though.
then?
Like, yeah, you can. So for the longest time, it was, what was it? It was off sales at bars. So the way the gateway into opening cold beer and wine stores in British Columbia was through off sales. So bars were allowed to, sell you beers and while you're at a restaurant, and then on your way out the door, you could buy a couple to go home with.
Yeah,
And
but what Kevin's talking about is the fact that in Ontario, like if I'm in a restaurant in Ontario and I want to buy Molson's, I have to buy it from the LCBO. I can't go directly to Molson's.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right.
Everything. Yeah, so the LCBO is the largest buyer of alcohol
on the planet.
It's crazy. Because there's
I
no
remember
other
growing up in
no
Ontario.
other...
Every restaurant that sold alcohol, they would have the LCBO mark.
And here's the numbers. So they profit $4.5 billion off of a monopoly on the control of alcohol in the province on sales of 11 or 12 billion dollars. So their profit margin is about 33%. On a monopoly on a product that people want.
Yeah.
You know, if you break that down and let the free markets take that, you know, there would be far more profit. Prices would drop. But they're way too greedy.
Yeah, and
greedy is the right word
Singh
for it.
will say that LCBO good, Loblaws bad. Like it's. By the way, what happened to Loblaws, Marty? You should check out Bend, Oregon.
Yeah, Jilly Beans with a $5 super chat says, Marty, you should check out Bend, Oregon, and do the Bend Ale Trail. I went there and I did it. I became a lover of craft beers and microbrews. I guess if you have too many, that's where they got their name, right?
I love Oregon. Actually, you would think that Oregon is going to be sort of a socialist blue state, but it's not. It's actually pretty cool state.
Well, that's why you have that movement outside of Portland to try and join Idaho, because the vast majority of the state is a red state being held hostage by a blue city.
Yeah.
That's correct. Yeah. You got California syndrome. I mean,
actually, I'm due for a tour. I'm due for a tour. Now that I can't go to Jasper, I'll go to the U.S.
Like California had that split. They wanted to form, and this was a serious idea, to form northern California and call it Jeffersonia.
I actually lived in California for about 4 years. It was a beautiful state, just the people are messed up, screwed up. Beautiful place to live.
That's why so many people live in Texas
I lived
now.
I lived in Southern California. You know, right in where Lockheed Martin is, where the military industrial complex is. You know, North LA County, strong blue pocket in a bunch of surrounded by, you know, mental illness, I guess you could call it. But, you know, it was a beautiful place in the high desert. Every day was 100, 110 degrees Fahrenheit. You know, it rained twice or 3 times a year. And then every day was sunny.
The colors always confused me in the American electoral system. I'd be the worst. I'd show up at the booth and I'd be voting all blue, and then coming home all proud, and they'd be like, "What?" I'd be like, "Well, blue, no." Like, wow, what a that
That's
was
why
another
we don't just play teams. We listen to ideas, and we. But what happens when you break it up too much, though? That's a serious issue. You got, you know, the PPC coming in and trying to be the new right party. How well did that work out for them?
Well, we're going to end up with I don't want to end up with like what happened in France with 6 or 7, or I think what's the worst place? I think Italy sometimes has like 15 parties on the ballot. I mean, you're forever stuck with a coalition, you know. And
that's why proportional representation, whenever they try and like take the results of a Canadian election and try and jam it through proportional representation, it's like that's not how it would work. The Christian Heritage Party would win seats. You'd have more left-wing parties win seats. You'd have other alternative parties pop up. The system shapes how people run in it. So the thing is not like, oh, it would be more fair if it was proportional representation. Like, no. The Marxist-Leninist Party would try and push to get a seat. You'd have the CHP to get a seat. And the thing was, we'd have perpetual just minority governments. Because the problem with the good thing with First Past the Post is it forces you to be serious. Who do you actually seriously want to run your area? Not which pet party do you like on a national level, where if it can scrape together 0.28% of the vote, you can have a representative. That's not real.
Yeah. But so here's my question to you: why do we need a federal government at all? What's the point?
Well, you and I think we're on a space this week, weren't we? Where that was the topic. a lot of people think that we're technology is moving us past that necessity pretty quickly, I think.
The federal government should have never had nearly as big a role as it tries to have now.
Yeah.
It's national defense, it's borders, it's some immigration. It's pretty limited. There's some federal crimes that need to be prosecuted, stuff like that.
If you were to rate the government on those three tasks, protecting individual liberties, border, military, how would you rate them?
Jeez,
terribly.
Yeah.
And
don't ask it that way.
Of your income.
Yeah.
No, that's a great way of putting it. I think that's a better argument than anything. That's a way better argument than I've heard from a lot of people these days. Because I agree with you. The role of government ought to be very limited, and it should be just these very few things. But when we look at the ginormous government that we have today, of the things that they do, and of the things that we can all agree on that they should be doing, they're shitting the bed. Let's just, I mean, to put it like blankly, that's what's happening. They're doing the worst job of that.
Military spending has been going up under the Liberals as even a proportion of GDP. The problem is that they're spending it on nonsense. Our entire military has become paperwork with no. It's basically an
tampons and men's bathrooms now, though.
Yeah, the entire military is basically an HR department with a couple handguns. That's literally it. We have no money actually being spent on tanks, artillery, airplanes. We have nothing.
It's actually it's discouraging how little we get for our taxes. Like when I drive around, and some days I go wow, what am I getting? Yeah. If you guys go down this path, I'll bail. I don't feel like talking about the government right now.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, let's take a curveball here and talk about something, because we got onto the idea of taking content and then putting it out on your platform. You did that with the Olympics, and wow, you got crapped on pretty quick there, Gov. But you also got crapped on for putting out other content recently, and that was content that wasn't unavailable for anybody who actually wanted to see it. There was a huge paywall, and paywalls are annoying for everybody, but they exist. And you defeated one of those paywalls by posting this video here, and this was the video from Kean Bexty from the Counter Signal. It was this full interview with Justin Trudeau, which inevitably almost got nobody seeing it. Nobody ended up watching it because of, I've said this before. I said it with Marty. I think it was just a bad way of rolling out something, because you're just going to get no eyeballs on it if you put it behind a paywall. So explain a little bit, what was your motivation for putting this out and making this available for everybody to watch on X?
Well, it was complicated. And you know what? First of all, I fully support, journalists and doing their, they have to make money, and, we're all in it to make money, and putting it behind a paywall. I have nothing wrong with that. I'm a capitalist at heart. But as soon as I found out a certain individual, I'm not going to name names, was involved in it, and it's not Kean. So everybody was saying it was an attack on Kean. It had nothing to do with Kean. I don't have a relationship with Kean. I don't really know anything about him other than he does these things. So there's a certain individual that has been targeting me for well over a year and taking my content and passing it off as their own. And I've approached them multiple times and say, listen, I know you're taking my, first of all, for the first 6 months, I didn't even care. I said, you know what? It's all about getting the message out. Do it. But when you keep doing it over and over and over again, it gets to the point where you get tired. And then you approach that individual and you say, listen, at least give me some, appreciation and acknowledgement that this is my work. Some videos, it takes hours to make these videos. It's a lot of work. And then you get gaslit and mocked and made fun of and ridiculed and then blocked. So this opportunity came up, and I never would have done it if it was just Kean, but there was a certain individual that was involved in this. And I said, you know what, this is my opportunity to strike back. So I paid the $5. I went on to the Counter Signal. I screen recorded the video, and I posted it. And if you take a look at my reply to the tweet, so I always do a post and I do a reply to my post, and it makes it very clear as to why I did it, because I was tired of having my content stolen and never being acknowledged for that work.
And I get what you were doing there. I think I supported you there. I think I texted you, maybe DM'd you or personally or whatever. I mean, it's a nice gentle reminder, like you said. You and I are in perhaps a little bit different than Keen, right? I mean, I've said this. Do I make a few bucks on Twitter? Sure, I do. But am I in this for the money? No. I'm in this to spread a message and to get people thinking and hopefully to get Trudeau defeated. But you're right. I mean, and I've had very one-on-one discussions with people. Like some guys know they know and they don't care. They appreciate that I retweet their stuff. Do I rip it and make it mine? No, that's absolutely inappropriate. Yeah, we're all in this together. Like, we got to be in this together, and yeah, good on you for that one.
So that was the motivation. What is that? What is the saying? Turnabout is fair play. When you show the enemy the same tactics that they've used against you, so they can actually see how it feels like. And I never would have done it. I'm really reasonable. I'm a reasonable person, and it takes a lot to push me to that limit. But after being stepped on and ridiculed and
well, if somebody's deleting your ink marks from your videos, that's bullshit. Like that's the that's a line that I would never cross. I'll take your video and I'll repost your video. I might not give you credit, but I think generally speaking, somebody would see where the source of the video that I'm reposting is coming from. If I take your video,
that is a big problem.
But the difference is, Marty, you're not targeting me, and you're not looking at my account and stealing every video that I'm putting out and reposting it and trying to claim that it's yours. You're just sharing video and sharing information organically as it comes across your screen, and that's completely fine, and that's something I appreciate, because the goal is to get the information out. I'm specifically against targeting people and stealing their content, because you can't come up with something that's creative or original, so you rely on other accounts.
I like them, but there's that one guy who works for them. It's Rebel News, but there's that one guy they employ from Malaysia, if you can remind me of his name, that literally his entire career is basically just stealing people's content on X and basically forming some sort of a media funnel through it. I forget what his name is, but it happens a lot where there's entire Twitter accounts, YouTube channels just based on basically posting other people's content. And even if it's not your own original work, like you're clipping stuff, you're editing stuff, the editing does take a while. And you should at least tag the person. It's the lowest common denominator. We're not asking for you to shout the person out, hey guys, send this guy $5. It's like literally pure acknowledgement. Can you guys send Bumpy Johnson in the chat said Ian Miles Chong. I'm not even sure if he works for Rebel anymore.
Yeah,
but that guy literally
has a million followers and has zero independent thought. Everything is copied from everybody
Ian
else.
Tungus or whatever his name is.
The
guy.
So I just want to share this though. So I do a lot of content where I need to use other people's content. I do this all the time. And I'll just show my page here. This is my YouTube channel, and here's something that I do that I would appreciate if more YouTubers would do, is when you do a video and you use clips and stuff like that. Like here, for example, I'm using a clip here. This is Kevin's post and other things that I'm clipping in there. Go to more and you'll see I'll put every post that's in the video, every single thing. You can go check out its original use. And I do this for articles, I do this for everything, because I just don't want people to take my word for stuff. Like, here's the original source material, here's where I got it from. You go check it out in your own time and tell me if I'm wrong. Absolutely.
Yeah, but you've got a staff of like 14 people working for you, Clyde.
Yeah, I'm so loaded with staff, right? It's just me. I'm just one guy. It's crazy. I mean, I know. Yeah. But it doesn't take much time.
I was gonna say, someone mentioned in chat, just to it's not even a correction, it's just extra information. I do believe Rebel did fire Ian Miles Chong for taking stuff, but someone else said he got hired by somebody else. And I think a lot of organizations hire him knowing he's problematic, but you can get a lot of juice from him in a couple of months and then get rid of him knowing that he's going to have a lot of complaints around just taking people's screenshots and not even crediting them.
Yeah. My fun this week was with community notes on Twitter. Like, man, I'm getting community. They don't appear if they're not successful, but I got groups that are trying to nail me with community notes all the time, and I'm making fun of them because I'm cut and pasting their community notes and republishing them and showing what they're going after me. I mean, they're literally telling me that, you're changing the narrative. I'm like, oh my God, I'm changing the narrative.
Yeah,
that's your term, right?
That's the point.
Yeah.
Because it is just a narrative. They're people are trying to push a narrative instead of actually. And I get annoyed with this whole concept of pushing narratives, changing narratives. I'm really just after the truth. I really just want to find out the truth. And if my understanding of the world is wrong, then approach me. Come on. Perhaps we can have a conversation on the show. Do it publicly. I'm not an internet blood sport kind of guy, but like I will have conversations with people who disagree with me. Sure. Come on. And come in and we'll leave it at that. But like, don't. I'm not changing a narrative. I'm looking for the reality of the situation is everybody's trying to form an opinion on what's happening around you. And what is science? Science is looking at nature and then trying to form an explanation for what you're observing, the phenomena that you're observing. And if your explanation doesn't cut it, somebody else will come in with a better explanation. I'm always looking for those better explanations.
And all it takes is one better explanation, then you're done. That's it, right? Like that's
exactly.
Science. Yeah.
And that's being open-minded, and that's the idea of being open-minded.
Oh yeah, I'm wearing my happy shirt, but I have a shirt for you. I have a shirt that for you. Maybe I have a shirt that says I might be wrong, but I doubt it.
There you go. But I'm happy to have these conversations. Now, at the same time, like there are some people that are so far out that like even their first premises that they bring up don't make any sense, and that's where you have to be able to separate the wheat from the chaff, right? And be able to go, okay, this conversation's worthwhile. That person's way out to lunch. But I'm even willing to like talk with people who are crazy out to the left or whatever it is, and talk with them. Sure, I'll have those conversations, but none of them are willing to come on. Like I try.
Honestly, I think Tucker Carlson ruined a lot of people willing to cross over for some debates, because those once went so badly for a lot of people on the left, as of a few years ago, that I think that almost people are terrified of being the person who gets absolutely skunked, not because the person's even being rude, but because they realize their ideas do not hold up to scrutiny at all.
And you bring up,
and that's the thing. I'm not even trying to skonk people. Like I really just want to ask questions.
Well, that's the problem. Asking basic questions is an existential threat to what they believe.
Oh, that's terrible.
Clyde, you bring up an interesting conversation in terms of communicating with the left, and I want to revert back to the military. What is the point of having a military if the country has already been subverted ideologically by leftist, communist, Marxist views? Our country has already been captured. There is no point of having a military because we have already been taken over. These Marxists, these communists, these socialists, whatever ist you want to call it, they all occupy positions of high power in the government, in the mass media, in the educational systems. We are stuck with them. We cannot change their minds. We cannot change their logic or their pattern of thinking. Even if you could, like Yuri Bezmenov talked about this, even if you shower them with authentic proof, even if you prove to them black is black and white is white, you can still not change their basic perception of reality. So what is the point of having a military if our entire country has been subverted ideologically through this demoralization process that's been going on for decades?
Well, you're right there, and Yuri actually even talked about, and we're seeing this today. Yuri Bezmenov, he talked about the idea that when you reach a level of ideological subversion, especially with what he called the useful idiots, it almost becomes within that group, the more ridiculous the ideology, the more ridiculous the premise of the idea, the better, because it's the only way to find out who's ideologically pure in the subversion, because you'd have to be in order to adopt these ideas. And we're seeing that today. It's really terrifying, especially with like all this gender stuff and all this craziness.
No, you're 100%, you're 100% right. So I just don't really understand, in order to change the perception of reality of society back to logic and reason and independence and freedom and individualism, away from this collectivist ideology. We can't focus a lot of our energy on trying to change people's minds. We have to focus our energy on educating the youth. We have to educate a new generation of people and show to them what the dangers of big brother government is, what the dangers of welfare state is, what the dangers of what the government is. The people that we're trying to change today, we're never going to change their mind. Sure, absolute dealing in absolutes. You can say, okay, we might change 1 or 2 people out of 100 people, but the main focus that we have to be putting on is educating the younger generation on all of these genders and all of these dangers. And when you talk about the vast majority of people, they send their kids to public schools, right? Government re-education camps. So a lot of the people say, what can we do? And voting is the way out of this. And no, voting is not the way out of this. Number one, you have to vote with your wallet instead of your ballot box. The amount, where you spend your money is far more important if you want to spend it with corporatism, or if you want to spend it with your local economy. Number two, spend time with your children and at least try to counter the programming that the state is trying to do if you can't homeschool yourself. Those are the 2 biggest things that every single person can do without having to radically change their lifestyle, or having to invest, or having to spend a lot of money. Spend your money wisely on the local economy, not on these corporatist globalist companies like your Walmarts and your Costco's, and spend time with your children.
On that thought,
I especially liked the Freudian slip that you had, where you incidentally replaced the word danger for gender. I thought that was just so fitting. It was.
I'm just going to say, I got the evil look from my wife. Spend time with the kids. Like I said, my 3 boys are here, so I'll finish this beer. We'll keep chatting, but after this beer, I got to go sit in the living room and.
Well, I have a perfect wrap up. I have the perfect wrap up for everything. So this is a super chat from Al Stewart. For $10, he says, excellent panel tonight, Clyde. Could your guests give us a couple of minutes each on what the most important things we can individually do to help turn our country around? I'm going to start with you, Wyatt. What do you think the things that individually we can do the best to turn our country around?
I would just say that, for the average person, because we could always say, you should get involved, start your own social media account, blah, blah, start a YouTube channel. That's really out of reach for most normal people who, want to stay normal people and not get engaged in politics. I would just say, just generally let your views be known. Don't be belligerent, but, I'm voting conservative, or I like this thing, or immigration's too much. It needs to be lowered. I think that people need to almost take a cue from Americans and realize it's not the end of the world if somebody that knows your general politics, knows that you think that a smaller government would be better. Because if anything, so many people around you have gotten their politics in the mainstream by starting off on the small scale and letting their circles know that I believe in progressive left-wing politics. It's not at all rude for you to do it the same way from the other side, saying, hey, I believe in smaller government, sue me.
Actually, I really appreciate that sentiment, because I always think that what is it? People say, keep your politics to yourself. But who are the people that always say that? It's always people that are radical leftists. They never keep their politics to themselves. But it's only when people say, like, I want small government, they're like, you better keep that quiet. I don't want people to know that you do. You know what I mean? It's like that kind of sentiment. So same question. The idea being, you know, give us a brief sentiment on what your most important things that we can do individually to turn things around. Gov, what do you think?
Well, you already got my ideas on, you know, where you spend your money and, you know, spending time with your kids. But I think one of the things that we need to do more is be more offensive. Everybody is so worried about cancel culture and, you know, this and that, and people are no longer offensive. Start being offensive. You know, when you see something that you don't like, don't bite your tongue. Call those people out. And ridicule and mockery is a far more powerful tool than violence ever will be. These people hate to be shamed. They hate to be ridiculed. They hate to be mocked. So do your best to make it offensive. Use mockery, ridicule as your tools, and you'll have far more success than anybody that is calling for violence ever will.
You're right about the mockery. The worst thing that ever happened to the World Economic Forum is not all the people fear-mongering against them. They're useless proto-socialists, and you should make fun of them all day long because that's what steals away their power.
Mockery was Tucker Carlson's message, right? When he came here, I love that message.
Well,
I love that message.
Read the book from Saul Alinsky, Rules for Radicals. It's literally a left-wing tactic to mock people that are your opponents. Just call who cares about what Klaus Schwab actually believes? It's all proto-socialist trade unionist nonsense. Just make fun of the fact he looks like a ninja turtle in whatever outfit he's wearing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, those are all good approaches. And like you said, Clyde, I mean, you know, starting a platform's easy actually, but getting it big's tougher. But I say this to people though, like, you know, we're hyper participants in our democracy. I keep encouraging people, like, just become a participant in a democracy. Like, voting's not enough. You know, if you go to your kid's graduation and the mayor of your town or your MP gives a speech, find that person after the speech and go have a chat with them. If you got your tax assessment and you're not happy about your tax assessment, call your tax assessor at the county and raise an opinion and say, I don't like this. You know, if your county or your town does an open house, I mean, I'm going to an open house on Tuesday next week. Like, just go if an elected official is doing something, just go sit in chamber. I mean, we had, you know, here in Calgary, we had this big brouhaha over rezoning, and hundreds of people were presenting to council. Well, then, have you ever been to city council and sat and listened to proceedings? Like, you know, I mean, that's what I tell people. Just be hyper participants, not hyper participants. Start by being participants. Like, go to your town's open house, go walk at City Hall, man. Like, people have never even been to City Hall. So, yeah, you know, meet people. Because I'll tell you, like, you're not going to get in front of Trudeau. That's nearly impossible to do. But you can get in front of your MP or your MLA or your school superintendent or your principal. I mean, like, literally go meet your principal, you know?
That's where conservatives mess up a lot. They assume, or just people in general who don't know politics very well, not as a conservative trait at all. It's just people are a bit naive. They think the way you have an effect is you go straight to the top and demand a meeting with a manager. It's like, no, talk to your school board trustee. Just get on your EDA, talk to an EDA board member. Like, you have to start somewhere, and you start at the lowest rung of the ladder. It's not going to be a Hollywood theatrical moment where you pound on the door of Trudeau's house and he, like, opens it and says, wow, I can't believe I was wrong about everything, and then everything gets solved. That
just sounds like a Karen moment. And I'm sorry to your wife, Marty. This is like a incidental name thing, but like it just sounds like a Karen moment. You're not getting anywhere by being a Karen. In fact, like, anytime I have a problem with any business or whatever, like I have a problem with a product or a service, I call up and I'm super friendly to the people that I have to talk to, because I know it's not their problem. They didn't do it. They're not the fault, you know. They're there to help me. So why would I be angry?
And they're not paid enough to care.
Yeah, but seriously, they will want to help you if you're not a dick. And especially if you're nice to them, they'll be excited to help you with this thing that you're having trouble with. So like, just take that sentiment and go forward with that.
Yeah, you have to come off
can.
like somebody who will be appreciatory if they actually get help. Because if you're being a jerk, they're like, the best outcome is that he's going to be slightly less of a jerk if I help him. But if you're happy, this guy's going to be even nicer to me if I help.
How to win friends and influence people. Everybody
Yeah.
should read that book.
Oh, it changed my life. It changed my life. Absolutely. A couple of more super chats before we get out of here. Penny D saying, great show, guys. Love this. Thanks. Solar saying, awesome panel. Please come back.
Solar.
soon,
Hey, I see
gentlemen."
Solar all the time on Twitter. Cool,
Solar always comments on my posts.
Yeah, I like Solar.
Awesome,
Yeah, I'm
awesome.
imagining it's the same Solar. Yeah,
Probably
Same
same avatar
picture.
picture.
same logo. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, we got
Jelly Beans comments too.
Jelly Beans saying for $5 saying, awesome panel tonight. Please just need to pay more attention to politics and not just vote for a party because the party they've always voted for. Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And thank you guys for coming out for this first, this is my first official panel that I've done. It feels like a Twitter space, but it's more, video and all that. So hopefully
On Twitter
we can do more
Space,
in
you
the
got to put your
future.
hand up like this. Hello.
Yeah, you should. We should have you on a Twitter Spaces, Clyde. You and
He
Marty-
listens. I know he listens on our spaces. He's working
I
though. He's
listen
too
on your
busy
spaces.
working, so he just listens. I know he listens.
we can get you on a Spaces, and we can get one popping. I'm not too sure about you. Why? I don't think we've ever really interacted.
I realized I wasn't even following you on X during this time, so I finally did follow you.
Okay.
I see your posts all the time, but it's one of those things where you come up so often in my timeline. I assume I was already following you.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, I get
Pretty
that a lot.
prolific tweeter.
Yeah, Gov
Well,
might
gentlemen-
be even more. Gov might be even more prolific than me. I don't know. Have you ever
No.
checked at your? Have you looked at your analytics? How many tweets do you do a day? Do you do 20 or 30, or do you do less? You must do 20 or 30.
Well, like tweets and comment tweets, or just
Yeah.
actual posts.
Both.
So my actual posts, I put about 4 or 5 out a day, and then
That's
I spend a lot of time commenting with my followers and people that comment. So I usually get my average. My average is about 4 million to 4.5 million impressions a week, which isn't. It's not high.
That's a big number. No, that's a big number. That's a big number. That's nothing to slout. I had a good week. Man.
You had a phenomenal week. You had that Alberta post.
I don't know if you guys can tell. You'll see, but I'm tired. I was on so many of these. I hosted. I'll give a little shout out to some of my friends. I mean, I hosted on Tu's Friday morning mashup instead of Sean Newman this morning, so I was the co-host with him, and then. Love him or hate him, I went in and did a show with the Rebel this morning, and Jasper was a big deal. Everybody wanted to talk to Marty about Jasper, so I had a good week.
Yeah, I checked your
super
numbers
chat
on
from
social.
Robert McFallon. We got a $10 super chat from Robert McFallon saying, I love this panel. Follow all you patriots on X. Keep up the great discussion. I'm just going to close out the stream. We can talk more about all this stuff once we end the stream. No problem. Stay on the line, guys. Just going to close this out. Thank you guys so much for tuning in this evening. For a first panel, I'm going to do more of these because this was a lot of fun. I had a great time. So, everybody's welcome back another time. We'll change it up. We'll get more personalities, more different people in every week. But looking forward to more of these. Anyway, tune in on Monday. I've got to move this weekend. It's going to be crazy, but we'll try to get you something on Monday morning. We'll see you all then. Everybody, keep on trekking.